Hell yeah, brother. God. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive presented by Stokastic, talking a little pit stop NASCAR action. That's going to be fun. I'm Eric Lindquist. You can follow me at Eric Lindquist over on X. And you can follow my co-host, my good friend Chris Spags at Chris Spags over on X as well. We're going to be breaking down this 5-game NBA slate, which is the last of the Mohegans, if you will, because well, we won't see each other again for 6 days. Next Wednesday, a single game slate. I'm sure we'll have some great content coming out for that because we'll be chopping at the bit. I know that's Lofty's thing to talk about. Chopping, whatever. Who cares? Chris, how are you doing, my dude?
I'm getting excited to be here. It's a little bit anticlimactic to have this slate after the 15-game monstrosity yesterday. Only 14 of which mattered, and of course we dealt with that chaos. And today it's like the afterglow, the guys that don't want to play. And I feel like for us too, it feels like the day before our vacation because it kind of is. And it's like you just kind of want to let's get the slate going. Let's play the game.
Yeah.
Let's see who's active. That's what we're hoping to see.
Yeah, I just want to talk basketball because I woke up this morning and we had some weird flooding. We've got some new irrigation stuff that our neighbors put in. And so on Monday, I wake up to just a flooded garage. And I was obviously one of the beauties of home ownership. We have a brand new house, and now I'm thinking about mold. I'm thinking about the electric. I don't know anything about building of houses, but I know when pooling of water occurs, whatever. And of course, now it's going to rain 3 inches today. And so we sandbagged up the entire garage, ran around, did all of that all morning, all afternoon. So I am excited to sit down and talk some hoops. I could use another 14 game slate.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've had flooding in this basement before, and I'll tell you, it was not a cheap repair. So I'm rooting for you to figure it out. Sucks it's the neighbor doing something that messes you up. But yeah, flooding. They had to tear down our baseboards at one point. We had to get a vapor wall pulled in that, like, if the water comes in, it just filters water into a brand new sump pump. We also had to pay for.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a lot of fun in home ownership that people just don't tell you about when you're like a kid. You're like, I'm gonna own a home one day, and it's like, oh shit, this is an absolute money pit, even if
Yeah.
in a good house.
Also, I don't know where shit is in a Home Depot. I was walking around Home Depot like I knew what I was doing. My father-in-law had all of these things that I needed to get in order to, the sandbags and get sub pump. Again, I didn't even know what I was looking for, and all of a sudden I'm running around as though I'm MacGyver and I'm gonna somehow, some way solve flooding in my garage. I'm like, don't you just pay somebody to come over and do it? He goes, not exactly, not while it's happening at everybody else's house. So. Ah, fun times at the Lindquist household, Spags.
I guess better than fire. I don't know. That's a trade-off in Eric's neck of the woods in Southern California, unfortunately.
We're just having so much fun. I'm going to be in Arizona for a couple of weeks, so I'm excited about that. But either who, Chris Spags, he's alongside me. We're going to break it down. We're going to have a little bit more time to shoot the shit, have a little bit of fun here as we go along, because 14 games yesterday was regimented. Looked like we set some stochastic badges at the top of the board yesterday. Shout out the dev team. That had to have been an absolute nightmare to account for absolutely everything. But hopefully you got on a little bit of Quentin Grimes. Hopefully you got on all of these spend ups from Karl Anthony Towns, Trae Young from the Garden in that overtime game. But we're going to start breaking things down here. Anything you want to bring up here before we start breaking down this 5-game slate? Because I think the theme for me is expect the unexpected.
No, I think that's a reasonable way to look at it here. I think there are some plays on the slate that are entirely unknown. And it's one of those days where, like, the projections obviously should be your driving force. So everything you do, whether you're using stochastic data, whether you're making your own projections, averaging, I don't know what you do, it should always be the baseline of what you do. A day like today, you have some players, your SGAs, 1% owned, Tyler Hero under 5% potentially. Like, one of those guys is probably really important here. And you probably have to really kind of go over every player with a fine-tooth comb on this kind of slate more than you would normally.
Yep. We are going to have a lot of pieces of news. We could have a really shorthanded Dallas team, depending on how things pan out. But overall, we're going to start breaking it down here with Golden State taking on Houston. Did you see Steve Kerr's comments yesterday? Because, I mean, what an asshole. What an absolute asshole he is.
I mean, he's trying to get his guys. I agree the travel stuff can always be optimized more, but it is a weird thing to bitch about, the day before the All-Star break when everybody's kind of going through that same thing. All the teams have had to travel a lot. And then too, when, which how America is right now, people don't want to hear about millionaires bitching about traveling on private jets and whatever. So a little bit of tone deafness by Steve Kerr, but you got to exploit whatever edge you can and try to make the schedule makers, maybe they're 1% nicer to you next time, even though it's just an algorithm at this point.
Yeah, and he traded away half the team. I mean, I mean, the GM did, but like Mike Dunleavy is the guy in charge of the Golden State Warriors. I love Mike Dunleavy. He's a dookie, but you get rid of Wiggins, you get rid of some of these other guys who had been playing a bulk of minutes. Yeah, back-to-backs might look a little bit different, if you will. But anywho, as I look at this game, playing it straight up, it looks like, because Steph Curry not on the injury report, Jimmy Butler not on the injury report, Draymond Green not on the injury report, despite the fact that Steve Kerr said that more than likely they were going to be resting some veterans. Alas, expect him to lie. Actually, don't expect the unexpected, because we all think he's going to lie, but not really a team that I think we have to be breaking down a ton, because nobody's pulling any ownership outside of a little bit of Buddy Hield, a little bit of Draymond Green, a little bit of Jimmy Butler, but this could perhaps be the least enticing team on the entire slate, Spags.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I actually gave these guys a bit of a rate boost to reflect Jimmy Butler being there. I think we talked about it yesterday where, Butler started to look like old Jimmy Butler, playing a little more motivated, averaging yesterday 1.4 fantasy points a minute. Now that's down to about 1.3 and change with how he played yesterday. But he is doing a little bit more, and as a result, everything's kind of squeezing Draymond. Draymond's usage is down, his rebounds are down, assist rates are down. He's hanging in fantasy points per minute, a little bit under 1 fantasy point per minute. But earlier today, it looked like Draymond was going to be super chalk. Now the minutes have stabilized in the Stokastic data. It doesn't look like the case. So I don't see the case for Draymond anyway, but I think there is a minor case for Jimmy Butler here. 7.5% ownership for the field. I'm getting about 5% more than that. I think Butler is a kind of strong play right now. He's assuming a role you'd expect for a guy. Got that big contract. Steph Curry's usage has also been up a little bit, I think, and part of them kind of flowing the ball more towards the guys who matter, and less to just everybody on the team having about a 20% usage rate. I think you take your shots on Butler, and to Steph to a lesser extent, being 5% on the slate, you could do it. I think you run some risk here because of what Eric talked about with Steve Kerr kind of bitching about things. Like, if these guys get kind of smoked early on, if Houston picks up a big lead, you probably see the starters run the risk of being pulled a little bit earlier than they would be normally. But if these guys are full go and they're playing today, a little bit of a surprise there. I think they're worth some shots here because nobody's going to be here. I think we all assumed they wouldn't play, and now looks like they're gonna.
Yeah, it looks like they're gonna. I do think the one nice point about Jimmy Butler is we have a lot of ownership that's going to come in on Trey Murphy. You're going to have a lot of ownership coming in that price range. I think that there's a case to be made for Amin Thompson, where the minutes are pretty guaranteed for him every single time out. I wanted to double check because, yeah, we have Jabari Smith going to be out for another week. I saw the 21st being his return date, but you've been getting Tari Eason resting on these back-to-backs here on the other side of this game. But the main thing for me is, like, if you have a pretty chalky lineup, which I think we can all agree is probably going to be the case if you get all of these Dallas pieces out, if you get Minnesota pieces out, I think you'll want to get a little bit of Jimmy Butler early, purely because he can kind of differentiate some of those lineups that you can't reverse engineer and just say, oh, I don't want to play 32% owned Trey Murphy and hold hands with the entire field in all 8 lineup spots. So I think Jimmy Butler is actually a really good shout out by you.
Yeah, no, I like him here. I also like Trey Murphy too, for what it's worth. I don't think you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater for poor Trey Murphy, but I'm with you. I like Butler's low owned when you have guys here with a decent total and a matchup too that, like, Houston's a tough one, but it is a team that if you're competitive with them, you're probably getting some decent results on the Golden State side. I think there's something here to the side when you have a team that's under 10% owned. People kind of tuned out because they thought they wouldn't play in the back-to-back. I'd consider taking some shots on guys, but Butler, I agree, looks the best.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised to see no ownership coming in on the entire team between those two, just Butler and Curry. The Draymond Green thing I can definitely live without here, I think, in this spot, but we have better game environments. We have more injury news coming up later. Let's jump over to the Houston side here, where Amin Thompson just brought it up. I think he's a nice differentiator at 8,600. Point guard, small forward is always kind of wild over on DraftKings.com to be looking at, that's for sure. I think looking at him on FanDuel, where you get a bump for some of those stocks that he can run into as well, definitely stands out as another great option, but he is 9K now. 9K on FanDuel, pulling 32.5% ownership. That is just wild, Spags.
Yeah, I would certainly get it with FanDuel. The stock upside obviously carrying a little bit more there. But yeah, Amin Thompson's a tough one for me, where I never have him projected incredibly well unless the price tag is low, with at least my DraftKings projections, and the price tag is never low. On FanDuel, the price tag is also not low, but you get a little bit of a boost because of the steals and block upside. I'm not sold on Amin Thompson today. I'm very low in him with my DraftKings exposure right now in my top 150. The sim I ran before the show, I'm getting close to the field, a little bit above on Şengün, close to the field on Jalen Green, close to the field on Dylan Brooks. I'm very low on Amin Thompson. Thompson, which does scare me. The one thing I would say for Thompson, where if he's going to be around 15% owned, Şengün maybe having a little bit less than 10% more ownership, I do think Thompson is kind of your lever against Şengün generally. If he grabs more rebounds, gets some more takeaways, like that's not going Şengün's way, and it's a big part of how he hits his true upside. So I see the appeal in Amin Thompson, but personally, I'm not there as much today. And that always means to me, Amin Thompson going for 60 is normally how it's going to go.
Let's break down some other spots because I'm surprised Steven Adams is playing on the back-to-back, but he only played 10 minutes, I guess, against Phoenix. They knew Tari Eason was going to be out, so maybe just limited his minutes to basically be a glorified workout, if you will, for Steven Adams. And then he could maybe play if they need him to here, but just basically backing up at the 5. I want to ask you about Cam Whitmore because I've been in the Cam Whitmore like fan club for a while, just from a DFS perspective, not from a real life perspective. But Cam Whitmore, over a DraftKings point per minute player without Tari Eason and Jabari Smith on the floor, and the minutes you can always see him walking into more. I get a little bit worried though, because we've seen Jae'Sean Tate kind of mixed in a little bit more in these kind of spots where he played 22 minutes against the Knicks on the 3rd with no Tari Eason, 25 minutes against Atlanta on the 28th with no Tari Eason. Jae'Sean Tate is starting to get mixed in a little bit more in the absence of them, and I really don't want to take shots on Tate at 3,500. I don't think it's really necessary on this slate, but Cam Whitmore is somebody that is going to be very, very dependent upon what happens with news coming up later, because I think there's a chance his ownership comes down from around 20% to like a single-digit high teens type number, and that would be very appealing to me. But how do you feel about him currently pulling 20% ownership on DraftKings?
So I'm getting him above the field right now, getting him a little bit shy of 28%. As Eric mentioned, Fields at about 21. So I'm okay being over on him right now. There's just isn't that screaming value to go to on the slate. You don't have your Jared Butlers yesterday, your Bulls. None of these guys here look that good. So for Cam Whitmore, a guy coming off the bench with high usage, about a 25% usage rate on the year, might be actually a little bit higher than that. And 1 fantasy point per minute, like that guy looks pretty good right now. But there is that risk of him not being a starter. There's a chance that he doesn't close here, and that would sort of give you the more likely downside. But I think he's worth being with field on unless we get some better value that opens up. Somebody unexpected getting ruled out. But I think Cam Whitmore at this point, if Stokastic is going to give him 24.5 minutes of the projection, it's hard to not get there, get him out with him being a good producer. And again, if Golden State sleepy legs on a back-to-back, Cam Whitmore gunning against you is certainly not going to help that out too much.
Yeah, he's definitely somebody to have on the old bingo card and be highly aware of where that ownership comes in at. If he starts, he's going to be chalk, and he probably should be. So I think that would be an unlikely scenario for me. Again, we've seen other guys kind of mixed in as the starter, whether it's Jae'Sean Tate, Aaron Holiday. They've just really not put Cam Whitmore in that spot. They preferred to bring him off the bench. And I think he's definitely serviceable there, but I want to be very ownership aware, if you will. Anything else you want to talk about with Houston, or should we move on?
No, I would just highlight Şengün as a play that I think still makes a lot of sense here. I see the chat talking about him. I have about a quarter of my lineups there. Jalen Green, the upsides there, has celebrated his birthday with his 40-year-old girlfriend. Keep getting that on my For You page over and over again. We get it. He's dating Dry. It's weird. I can't imagine a 40-year-old woman hanging out with 23-year-old me, let alone a 23-year-old NBA player. That's neither here nor there. Post-birthday narrative for Jalen Green, but I think Şengün looks like my favorite play here, and I'll highlight that. OddsShopper, though, looking good.
Yeah, he played 37 minutes yesterday. Was he out? Was he like bottles in the club? What was happening?
Yeah, it was like it was a respectable table, I believe is what I saw on social media, where there was like a big cake for him and maybe some sparklers going off on the cake, but didn't seem too crazy. But you're an NBA player going out, maybe knock him a few projection points down if you want.
Yeah. Probably won't, but that seems like something I probably should do, considering, again, I don't feel very good waking up in the morning after a couple of beers, let alone being a professional athlete who played 37 minutes and then is out at the club. But, that's neither here nor there. We continue on to Sacramento, 8.5-point favorites taking on the shorthanded Pelicans. Shorthanded not just because they've had a bunch of dudes hurt and out for the season, being Herb Jones, who was just announced. He's done for the year entirely now. DeJounte Murray, we know, with that torn Achilles. Kelly Olynyk, also not going to make his debut. Zion, the biggie, obviously. But on the Sacramento side, Markelle Fultz is in today. He got picked up by this basketball team. I don't think that's going to end up being something where I'm going to even project him for a minute or two, but I will say this. It's a back-to-back right before the All-Star break. You never know if he's randomly going to get spikes in minutes. you saw a number of consolidated rotations there. Keon Ellis played his way into a lot more minutes with a hot first half. You had DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, Domantas Sabonis. We know that they're going to get minutes, but nobody really pulling ownership. Who do you want to kind of like parse through and roster here from the Sacramento side?
So right now I'm getting the most Zach LaVine, which I'm okay with. It feels like the rates are stabilizing a little bit for him. I think the assist upside probably a little bit higher in Chicago than he's going to have overall in Sacramento, but usage has been there for him. So I'm kind of keeping his rates where they were in Chicago days and hoping things start to level out a little bit. So far, the big winner from the post LaVine Fox trade has been Domantas Sabonis kind of consolidating usage a little bit more, getting closer to 24% usage and leading the team on that front. There's been a little bit more of a gain for Monk, a little bit more of a gain for DeRozan, but I think it's got to stabilize for LaVine a little bit. And as he starts to shoot better, that should even out more. So LaVine is my one guy on the team. I guess I'm above the field on, getting him at 15% compared to the field 11. I am low on Monk, low on DeRozan, low on Keegan Murray, basically with the field on Sabonis. So basically it's Sabonis and LaVine looking best to me. I think functionally you could take all these guys and just get with the field on the ownership. I know it's not like a brave stand, but none of them look bad. I think Keon Ellis, because of what you mentioned with Fultz, would be the one I'd worry about if you're chasing him at all there, because he'd be the one who likely loses minutes to a guy if they were going to give Fultz minutes right away. But I think these guys all look okay. They don't look like standout plays to me, but if I were to kind of favor one, it'd probably be Zach LaVine.
Yeah, I think Zach LaVine too. And I mean, this just comes down to going through the box score from yesterday. I don't see 29 minutes for Keon Ellis in the range of outcomes yet again today. He got off to a ridiculous start. He had, I think, 13 real points in the first quarter coming off the bench, checking it at the 7:30 mark. That is such an outlier that I can't really even verbalize how much of an outlier that is. He ends up subbing in for Malik Monk, who, whatever, but ends up trimming down some of the minutes. It ended up being more Zach LaVine because he missed out on maybe 2-3 minutes there. I think him, Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, obviously foul trouble can be a thing too, but how many times do we think Keon Ellis is going to play 29, 30 minutes going forward from now until the end of the year? I would say not very often.
Yeah, with guys being out, probably not that often. No, it felt like a lot of minutes yesterday. I mean, even going through Popcorn Machine, now I'm looking at it as you were talking just to be kind of aligned with you. Really did seem like he picked up a lot of minutes in the second unit on really both quarters, the second quarter, they both have. Second quarter, he picked up a shitload of minutes. Fourth quarter, picked up a lot. That isn't normally his run out here. So I'm with you. The Keon Ellis minutes feel like a little bit of an aberration. And really, if Fultz does come in, you'd easily shave 5 to 10 minutes off of Keon Ellis, just give that to Fultz, and that would not be a good thing for him.
Yeah, that would be very, very bad. And Fultz can be functional as a ball handler coming out there. And that was kind of the thing without De'Aaron Fox. It made sense. This is an actual signing that makes sense in the NBA. Sometimes we can overanalyze it, but with Malik Monk doing all the ball handling, Zach LaVine playing off ball a little bit more, having a great 3-point shooting season. That's basically why they said, we'll trade, and get rid of whomever in order to acquire him. De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk can't have the ball in the hands at the same time. So I do like that acquisition for them, but I'm just, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, but that's enough where Keon Ellis is not really on my bingo card for today. I'll let other people chase him and figure out what they want to do. Pretty flat across the board on all of these other guys. I'm over on Domantas Sabonis. I'm a little under on Malik Monk, and I'm with you. Zach LaVine pulling 11%. I'm almost double the field on him. Think that there's a chance that we run into him getting a couple more minutes. And hey, it's the identical matchup that we're running back, but not identical when it comes to the roster on the New Orleans side, because Zion Williamson, who did everything in 27 minutes yesterday, he's not playing basketball today, which has definitely changed the complexion of this basketball team, starting with the uber chalky Jose Alvarado. He's got a good fantasy point per minute rate. He is somebody who makes a lot of sense to roster in your lineups right now, but 61.5%, more or less, Spags?
I am above on Jose Alvarado, getting him actually in 85% of my lineup. So getting a lot of Alvarado. I do like Murphy and McCollum here as well, and I would frankly love to even out the ownership more. I'm way above on Murphy, way above on Alvarado, way low on McCollum, and these guys all kind of gain similar amounts of usage, similar amounts of opportunity. So I'd like to try to level that a little bit, but Alvarado at 5K, likely playing about 30 minutes, hopefully a little bit above that would be, the upside there, but projected for 29.3 right now. His price tag's too cheap. He does gain pretty good rate increases overall without having guys like Ingram, guys like Zion, obviously, who's out and actually still available to play. And DeJounte Murray is out for the year. He's averaged about 21% usage, 35% assist rate. Of court time without those big three of guys that are no longer with the Pelicans or not available today. And that's something that's probably going to come down a little bit more because I think some of that sample size was also when McCollum was out, when Murphy was out. But still, Alvarado playing 30 minutes, you're probably your third playmaker on the team. He still looks pretty good. Zion just leaves a ton of stats behind. So I think Alvarado's worth the chalk, even though it feels not great. I think in a perfect world, Eric, I would probably get like 40 to 50% of all the guys because I think they're all similar plays at different price points. I think McCollum's a forgotten man here, and I'm getting a lot of Murphy and Alvarado, but like McCollum to me, just being under 20% owned, like that's your very obvious direct leverage on the very chalky Pelicans here.
He is currently my favorite play on the entire slate. I love the CJ McCollum play. He would be my nuke of the night if we were doing nuke of the night here today on the Live Before Lock program, which will obviously still be here, but I will not be a part of that here today, as that'll be Greg, Matt Belman breaking everything down. And then I'll be back on the playback show at, 5 p.m. my time? So 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be breaking everything down for another hour, sweating out some games, talking through our lineups and what we ended up doing. But CJ McCollum, I think, is very underrepresented. There are a lot of guys you have to take off the floor to kind of get sample size, but we have a pretty good sample size for CJ McCollum relative to other pieces. We have a pretty good one for Jose Alvarado, 1.14 with DeJounte and Zion off the floor. But if you take Murray, Zion, Ingram, Tice, and Elf Payton, two guys that I also took off just for the hell of it, CJ McCollum, 216 minutes this season, a 1.35 DraftKings points per minute rate. I have no idea how he's not more popular than this.
Yeah, I mean, I've got him at 1.3 today with the rate that I have with just the big three of with Ingram and DeJounte and Zion off. So I'm with you on it. I think McCollum is a play that like I wish he projected a little bit better. I think the issue is that he's probably outperforming a little bit here with the 61% true shooting he's had, at least within the sample size that I pulled. But still, like, if he shoots 58% and has that usage, he's probably a pretty decent play. So yeah, to me, like I think McCollum really is most directly your leverage on Murphy, where if McCollum has an outlier day, he pulls from Murphy at a similar salary point, and then maybe he's what wins you a tournament. But I think really like Murphy, McCollum, and also Alvarado, like they're all pulling from the same kind of lead ball handler spot, and they all, I think, three of them getting there might be tough, but 2 out of 3 getting there seems like a decent probability / possibility if the game's competitive.
Who do you think starts? Who do you think the fourth starter is going to be in this spot?
I would think it would be Carlo coming in. I think it'd be Makovich falling in. Could be Javonte Green. But I would think it would be Murphy, McCollum, Missy, Alvarado, and Makovich would be my guess.
I was thinking about that. I think there's a world where Bruce Brown starts today.
Interesting. So he did come in yesterday when Zion went out in popcorn machines. I thought that was odd, but yep. I mean, it's certainly possible. Does that make you want to play Bruce Brown? Because I think I can only play him if he starts. I said that actually on my stream before this, but I don't know if he's going to start.
Yeah, so we can go through the options. Before, they've gone to Javonte Green or Jeremiah Robinson Earl as the 4, but you didn't have Bruce Brown there. And then they've started to dust off Carlo Matkovich. And it's so funny because people made fun of me on X because I was just like, and they're like, you don't know ball. I'm like, I'm pretty positive Carlo Matkovich plays center. Like, he is a center, and he played the 3 basically next to Zion and Missy in a couple of these recent outings. But that was like Aaron Gordon, Jokic front courts. I think with Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, I think they're pretty happy with Missy out there, but it's basically 3 guards-ish. I mean, DeMar DeRozan, not so much of an issue there, but I thought it would be Matkovich right from the get-go, but I want to at least point out that yesterday, Matkovich, purely, the only thing he did was play backup 5.
Yeah, I'm looking at Popcorn Machine now because they've moved Matkovich around a lot. There was a period like a week and a half ago where they were playing him like 30 minutes out of nowhere. As Eric mentioned yesterday, Matkovich played 15 minutes, and it does look like they were basically all minutes when Yves Missy went off. Wasn't always him playing. Actually, no. He did. No, he basically played every minute that Missy was off the court. So yeah, looks like he's now back up. That's so fucking dumb.
It's so weird. I know it is, but it's one of those things where we can finally I like these type of deeper dives to be able to talk through the process and I mean, all I do is look at basketball stats all day long and look at Popcorn Machine and add more funds and dunks and threes. And I'm not complaining. I love doing it, but sometimes it's like, I want to be able to talk about the research rather than just, we get a piece of news on Live Before Lock and let's, I'll react to the piece of news as quick as we can. But, again, we all have our roles to play in this game of life, Spags, and that is mine. But I wanted to at least point out how weird it was that Matkovich was purely backing him up at the 5 after playing next to Zion and next to Missy. I'm not sure if they're just hitting eject on that plan going forward, but it does have me on like high alert to potentially say, hey, Bruce Brown, 4,400 point guard, small forward. I should give him a boost in the Sims.
No, I think you're right. I mean, and again, Zion went out at, about the halfway point of the first quarter. Bruce Brown came in. There was then some overlap of time, but the second time Zion went out, they then brought back in McCollum and Missy. So there's a chance Bruce Brown could start here. I still wouldn't rule out Makovich. It could be
I
anybody,
agree.
but I think being prepared for all the outcomes and not locking in and like definitely not tuning out at this point, going like, I'm going to play Carlo Makovich and that's it. Because I think you're right. Like he could absolutely not start here, and they might have shifted his role around because sometimes teams do that for no particular reason.
Yeah, let's jump over to Portfolio EV here as well. I mean, obviously, we've started intertwining this here on the deeper dive because we have this time to be able to break it down and we want to make you money. That's the goal of Spags and I coming on these shows. Obviously, we want to be able to give you guys great information, but we also want you to make money, whether that be in DFS or in betting. And Portfolio EV, looking at the top of the board for this game specifically, I'm in Thompson. There were some unders that looked awfully nice, awfully advantageous that we saw from that side of things. But the Pelicans especially too. I mean, we're gonna see some stuff shuffle around here, some deck shares shuffle around based on that starting lineup. I want to just have that board pulled up and be able to react to whatever that starting lineup ends up being in the moment as fast as I possibly can. Hopefully, snipe a couple of those bets, and hey, you can upload direct bets directly from there, right there on Portfolio EV to your bet slips on BetMGM, on DraftKings. Great stuff by the dev team and everything over at Portfolio EV. We'll talk about it here throughout the program, but Spags, Sacramento, New Orleans, anything else you want to cover here?
No, I think that's it. Again, there's a lot of things to mine from here. I would say right now, though, like it clearly seems like Alvarado to me and Murphy too, I think are like core plays of what I'm doing. And I think because of that, trying to get more McCollum, like this should be, I think, a baseline of what you try to do today as some of the core of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, the Bruce Brown obviously is popping on the New Orleans side right now. That was kind of my one hesitation why I haven't posted and why I haven't made that bet yet on any sites or pick'em sites, because I truly think there's a world where Bruce Brown starts. So I'm trying to keep some context there. I think some of those other ones, Trey Murphy under 3.5 3-pointers, that's a big number. If you have Circa available in your state and you're not utilizing that on a day in, day out basis, you're kind of doing it wrong. Circa, some of the best lines that you'll see depending on whatever state that you're looking at here. But we're going to move along, but first, promo code PITSTOP. We've got an awesome NASCAR package that we have all situated for you here. Big races coming up. And I said this yesterday, I'll say it again. I think one of the biggest edges in DFS remains in NASCAR. People reacting to some of these prelims. And I guess there's duels going on here today. I think it was yesterday, maybe a little bit too, but duels today. I've been just, tracking the NASCAR people on X, but you want to get the best data and projections while you're at it too. And promo code PITSTOP will do that for you. 50% off your first payment of any NASCAR product you guys want to utilize the Sims. We've got so many guys talking about the NASCAR product behind the scenes, the dev guys, covering every single race for you throughout the NASCAR season. And there are not very many packages available, I think, throughout the industry for this sport. It remains extremely untapped, extremely edge centric. Go get yourself some. Pit Stop. Promo code Pit Stop. Dear Lord, sweet baby Jesus, 6 pound, 8 ounce baby Jesus. Now I just want to watch Talladega Nights.
I played some NASCAR during the pandemic. NASCAR's fun. I mean, Talladega Night's also fun, but NASCAR is it's a fun sweat. I think it's the lap leader stuff is pretty fun. There's an edge. And also, frankly, it's like people don't do enough content around NASCAR around the space. I know Stokastic has done some in the past, but because that lack of content is out there, people sort of don't know what they're doing if they're not using projection sets.
I want to go fast. Yeah. I strapped 20 kilos of Canadian Bam Bam underneath.
I know you have all the quotes. I haven't seen that movie in a long enough time, so I would fully Gajeski you here, unfortunately. But I do, of course, I have seen
honestly, it. I love it when you go full Gajeski on me because you know what I get to do?
Oh, just the silent treatment. The old married couple silent treatment that's a staple at the Sunday Live Before Lock shows for NFL.
I'm going to miss it. Miami, 1.5 favorites. 1.5. Yeah, there we go. Going up against Dallas here, 216.5 total. Oh, such a disturbing total. We're not going to get to anything wrong. This is going to be a game that we have to spend a little bit of time with here. The Dallas side gets it could end up being like your big value spot of the entire slate as you start looking at it. But Miami, we did get news that more than likely, we're going to see Tyler Hero out there. So that is interesting coming off of yesterday where he was questionable, ends up playing the front end of the back-to-back. Every team on a back-to-back, I think you already know that. dear watcher of videos, but we have a questionable tag on Bam Adebayo that is such a big piece of this puzzle. We have 3,700 Davion Mitchell pulling the most ownership on DraftKings purely because he's been starting, playing decent enough minutes. And, well, they're not playing Oklahoma City, which is a big plus in the old DVP department here for him. But Bam Adebayo questionable. If he ends up out, we could be getting to a lot of these pieces. But as it stands right now, everybody kind of muted interest across the board. What stands out to you amongst some of these chalkier pieces pulling a quarter of the ownership, Spags?
So I was getting a lot of Bam Adebayo. I think the minutes got moved around the Stokastic data a little bit because I'm now about half the field on him. He's being played by about a quarter of the field, and look, like the data is the data, as I said earlier in the video, like projections should be the first and foremost thing you look at for everything. You're playing a Dallas team with like no big men. Like it's really like an important thing to note here. Kyler Kelly, they don't even seem to want to play at this point. I'm sure he would get a few more minutes if they were absolutely killing him on the boards or something. But like Bam Adebayo, if he plays, should be able to get whatever he wants. So I think Bam at this spot, I think this quarter of the field being on him seems fair. I'm getting 13%. I think I would like to get closer to the field here, but I am getting a lot more Tyler Hero, getting 2x the field on Hero and half the field on Bam. I think that flows pretty well naturally for what we talk about here, the concept of getting leverage. And Hero does get the biggest rate increase overall from not having the various Heat players. You have no Rozier today, no Wiggins. Not that that matters that much. Obviously, no Butler since he's been gone. So Tyler Hero to me, I think looks like an interesting tournament option coming off the illness. Only 14% owned. Bam, I think fair enough chalk. Everybody else here, I'm a little bit low on. I'm a little bit low on Jovic. Guess I'm with the field on Davion Mitchell, which the fans of these streams with Josh Engelman will know, of course, the love of my life. He played 34 minutes yesterday, so that's the thing. But the Heat are a weird team, Eric. Like I feel like they're kind of going through some weird growing pains of the guys who are rotating in, and like it's odd to see Mitchell come in and play like he's a part of the key part of the rotation just because Rozier's out. But getting Robinson back in today, getting Hawkins back in today could kind of mess things up in a meaningful way.
Not gonna lie, I had no fucking clue that they were gonna even play Davion Mitchell and that he was gonna be on this team, let alone play 23 and 35 minutes his first two games with them. What are we actually doing, Spoelstra?
He's Heat culture. He plays defense.
Oh my God.
Good cardio shape. Doesn't shoot a lot.
My God. I will say this. I think by far my favorite tournament play from the Miami Heat side is not pulling, and let me double check this because I just refreshed to make sure that I had the fresh ownership. Yeah, he's not pulling any ownership whatsoever. Why is Alec Burks only pulling 0.28% ownership? He played 28 minutes yesterday. He put up 11 and 9. There's no reason that Davion Mitchell just has to be the guy out there playing. So you want to get some leverage, just get to some Alec Burks away from Davion Mitchell and hope that, Davion Mitchell doesn't have a great first stint, and Alec Burks, there's no reason that he couldn't just win out, and be on the floor for just as much, if not more time.
See, I would push back. I think they're playing different roles in that rotation. I think Davion Mitchell was filling in for Rozier. And granted, they could all kind of blend together. Yeah. But he was filling in for Rozier, or at least filling in for that spot. And I think then it was like, at least in the past, it's been Burks fills in when the shooting guard isn't in. So I think that's something where Burks, to me, I believe will get displaced by Robinson and Hawkins to a lesser extent being back in. So like I'm with Stokastic. I actually had Burks minutes lower. They had met getting 18 minutes today for Burks. I think he could play like 10. It depends how much Duncan Robinson and I guess Hawkins get, but I think that he's not as high up on the rotation as those guys. And I just don't think that he and Mitchell are competing for the same run necessarily.
Yeah, no, I don't think that they're competing for the same run, but I'm saying that like in your lineup construction, you could potentially go and save $100 if you're super chalky elsewhere. I'm just kind of like, there's a feeling that I get. It's in my plums. This is just like Will Ferrell quotes. We're going to go across the entire gambit here, but I get a feeling that it's going to be a very chalky slate in about an hour. Like we're going to get a bunch of news from Dallas. Things are going to shift. It's going to be a very chalky slate. And you're like looking for 1 point of deviation, like one guy to get away from, because they could have 8 guys active on the Dallas side. And we could be playing 4 or 5 of them in lineups throughout everything. If we get Kyrie and Clay out, we're going to be locking in guys like Jaden Hardy. We're going to be locking in guys like Spencer Dinwiddie in a bunch of lineups. Max Christie for sure, no matter what, I think. But I want to kind of have one or two of these guys on my radar. Just where, Davion Mitchell's pulling a quarter of the ownership right now. I'll get to some Alec Burks just from a lineup construction standpoint. And we know Alec Burks, he can be a good fantasy producer. They went on a little bit of a run OKC did yesterday. Again, now I just pulled up popcorn machine. You got me hungry. But Alec Burks, 28 minutes yesterday, had some weird fourth quarter run as things got out of hand towards the end of that game where they ended up closing with him. I guess I'll ask you this. Who do you think the fifth starter is this time for Miami? Because I think there's a number of guys that could be in this spot too.
I think it would be Hero, Bam, Ware, Davion, and one of Jovic, Robinson, or Jaquez, I think would
Yeah,
be it. But not Burks. So that's the issue with Burks, I think,
that's
is there's just too many guys kind of jamming it up.
and that's the point for me too, where I just think there's no chance that Burks gets jammed, like at all. He'll be 1% no matter what.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think more. I'm viewing it more in terms of the jamming of the rotation itself. It's just like it's a crowded rotation now of a lot of guys who do the same thing. Whereas, like if Bam is out, like Kel'el Ware, they have nobody else to do what Kel'el Ware does now because they don't have Love available. They got no other bigs that matter. You can play Haywood Highsmith. I also think there's a non-zero possibility that Haywood Highsmith starts in this game too because he could start for Wiggins. Which would not be crazy because he was coming in for Wiggins yesterday. The Heat are just basically like a little bit of a mess. I think you can trust the hero projection. You could trust nothing else really at this point because the starters are going to matter a lot and a lot of wings available, a lot of wings and pseudo point guards available for this team.
Yeah, can't wait for it to be Pell Larson getting the start. That'll be fun. Jaime Jaquez, he's at least available, right? So he's going to play. Those are minutes that are going to him that weren't available yesterday. That's probably what trims Burks for more than likely anything. But we have Jaime Jaquez 5%. I think that's probably the more appealing shot between the two. I don't know. I'm just going to revisit this a little bit later because I do think we're going to run into some chalk. Oh, wouldn't you know it? It's this side where we could be running into all of it. Questionable tags: Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, Dante Exum. Who's already out for Dallas? Let me count the people. Anthony Davis, rest his soul, poor guy. Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, Derek Lively, Caleb Martin, Dwight Powell. I named everybody who is tall in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It is going to be dire times for them on the boards. They must really hate Kyler Kelly, is what I've kind of realized. But Spags, we're already getting some ownership on some of these guys. How are you even like game planning for this spot? Because it could just be steroids.
I mean, I'm getting an ungodly amount of Max Christie as it is. I think he's been a much better version of himself in Dallas. Talked about this on a few shows, but I've been quietly like adjusting his rates every time he's on the slate to get him to what he's playing in Dallas. It's not like a ton of usage. It's about 20% usage so far, 10% assist rate. But compared to where he was at the Lakers, where he was just out there kind of doing nothing, he's become a new man. So I'm actually getting 3x the field on Max Christie right now. I'm getting him at 75% of my lineups, which is a lot. I had Grimes this much yesterday, so I'm used to kind of taking these stands a little bit here. Not that I think Christie gets you 60, but he looks good right now. If Kyrie is out, he's going to look infinitely better because, like Eric mentioned, the rotation is going to be really short. So I think he looks good. The one I feel less good about is Omax. Omax played 24 minutes yesterday. Olivier Maxence Prosper, if you want to be his full name there. And getting him in about 40% of my lineups right now. And he just always grades out well projection-wise, and it never feels like he gets enough minutes. Maybe at a certain point, you have to play him more just to keep Kel'el Ware / Bam at bay. But like I get Omax in every slate, and it drives me nuts because he just feels like he never actually hits.
Yeah, I think yesterday we have to take everything with a grain of salt because it was Golden State. And Golden State, they decided that they just weren't going to play a center either. Like they played Quinn Post, which again, he just roams around the perimeter. That doesn't really count. Ooh, Walker Kessler out. It's starting to come in. Let's go.
That's
Let's
so late.
go. He wasn't even on the injury report. And well, he's ruled out. These are the dominoes that are going to start falling here. Not just now, but later on in the day. There's going to be some wonky, ridiculous stuff that we can't account for. But I mean, good job, Utah. Not even on the injury report. Why? You knew you were going to sit him. What are we doing here?
Well, so like the Stokastic data team had all the Jazz, like the Jazz bigs, Markkanen, Collins, and Kessler out this morning because Utah usually doesn't play them on a back-to-back. Yep. So it's odd that they're even would theoretically be available, but it wouldn't shock me if they just get ruled out one by one over the next whatever hour or so.
Yeah, and then John Collins needs to, hang out with the biddies in Utah out for rest.
He deserves it. He's played well this year. John Collins deserves some rest, I think. I don't know. I think because they won yesterday, maybe they're feeling big for their britches a little bit, but who knows?
Oh my God. John Collins, has he actually played well? I guess I haven't looked at his Darko for a while, but
1.2 fantasy points per minute. He's been good.
Yeah, I'm looking at him on dunks and threes here too. 63.7% true shooting. Is that real? 43% from three? Is this John Collins?
He's assisting more too. He's been really good this year. There's a stretch where I was playing him every slate and he kept smashing, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. But it's leveled out a little bit now because they have too many
Okay.
guys.
I can honestly say I look at basketball all day. I didn't know John Collins was actually having a good year because I usually just kind of like bet Isaiah Collier stuff and then move on with my life because all he does is cash stuff. So thank you,
It's,
Isaiah.
that's what happens when you make your own projections, though. Sometimes you fall in love with these dudes and you're like, why am I getting John Collins every day? You're like, oh, I guess it makes sense. And then you have to kind of look at it and kind of figure it out. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
People in the chat saying my boy, he is my boy. I love John
I know
Collins.
this about myself, and this is probably just something for you and me on the side, just because like I don't know, we build out stuff all day and it's really fun to do. But my problem is that I get really biased towards a guy, and then I just ramp their minutes up by 2.5, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting him in every lineup. Oh, it's weird, and it's like, well, no shit, you're getting him in every lineup. Stupid, you're incorrectly projecting him.
Yeah, I'll do it the opposite way, or not the opposite way, but I'll do it a different way where I'll give the guy like too high of a rate. And Josh makes fun of me for this, but it's like Davion Mitchell at one point, like the Raptors had
I remember
quickly
that.
Barnes, Barrett out. It's like, okay, why does like Davion Mitchell get a 30% usage rate and 25% assist rate? Take your shot. And he didn't end up paying off that well. I think he hit like value, but didn't like win a tournament. But yeah, it's one of those little fun things when you work the data, even if you use stochastic projections, using your add more funds, your NBA Wowie proxies, and like getting a read for these guys, and paying attention does give you the slightest bit of an edge, even though projections will matter infinitely more always.
All right. In terms of DFS for tomorrow, for this spot, or for tomorrow, for today, in this spot specifically, I'm so out of it. Klay Thompson, a little bit under projected, but if he ends up being like one of the 8 bodies we have available to even click on from Dallas, I mean, obviously he's going to be much more popular than 12, 13%, but are there any pieces that you kind of want to have high on your radar in the event that like news doesn't break before the slate starts? Because I think the main one that we just have to focus on is the potential of Jaden Hardy. Like the potential of Jaden Hardy on this slate is like, I want 100% or I want 0% Spags.
Yeah, Jaden Hardy is a little bit of a lower tier than some of the guys that I like instantly go nuts. Like Jared Butler, when he was a starter, I'm like, shit, I got to play 100% of this guy. He just goes nuts. Yeah. There are some of the guys in the league that are like that come up. I would say Hardy's a little bit below that. The one thing he has going for him is he is an absolute like knockdown shooter a lot of times. The true shooting on the year, I don't think supports that. 55% true shooting. From 3, he's putting up 38%. That looks a little bit better. But like there are times he gets in a game and he just knocks down 6 threes. And I know this because I used to watch a lot of Mavs games that he played Quentin Grimes every night. Now he's finally thriving, thank God. But he would get jerked around that rotation so much for the Mavs because Jaden Hardy would go nuts and just put up a ton of points in a period. And going back to last year, he would always be a really strong play, probably the best per minute guy on the team when you would have Luka out, when you would have Kyrie out, because he does become a more true point guard. Hardy's been kind of squeezed from the rotation a little bit, so that's a little bit of a spooky part that maybe he or Brandon Williams, one of them could have a little more favor. But I'm with you that Hardy is like a legit player who does get good usage even when there are guys in. If guys are out, like he's going to play mini Kyrie out there if he gets to start. And I agree that he would be, to me, like probably about a 100% play at that point.
Yeah, I think Dinwiddie's ruined him a little bit.
Yes.
13.2% assist rate for Jaden Hardy. That's the real issue, that you're not running into like complete nuke Jaden Hardy, is that even in some of these shorthanded spots, you have Spencer Dinwiddie running the point, and you won't have ball handling for Jaden Hardy. So he's had the lowest assist rate on his career here. This is the first year, well, first in a while there. Oh, we got Rudy Gobert out, Mike Conley out. Oh, please don't sit Ant. Please don't.
I was rooting for Ant. I was rooting, but if not, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You love Dillingham Day, huh?
This is going to be a disaster against Oklahoma City. But anything else you want to cover here in this one from a DFS perspective before we jump over to Portfolio EV?
No, I think just watch out, obviously, for Kyrie being out. Everybody will look better. And as Eric mentioned, like the rotation gets short enough at that point that you're almost in a spot like Washington had versus Cleveland after the trade deadline, where it's like you just don't have enough guys. Dallas runs the risk of being there if you get Kyrie out.
100%. Let's take a look at Portfolio EV here. Jordan Klein, pop that up on the screen. Is there anything that we've got popping from this one? Finger popping each other's assholes. That's a great movie quote. Do you know which one that is?
I didn't even hear it. I heard you whisper something in kind of an effeminate voice. I don't know what it was.
The Jonah Hill comeback on it is so good. 22 Jump Street. It's just incredible. Oh my God, okay. Kyrie's out. Why do we even do this?
What are we live before lock? It's going to be a great 15 minutes.
Klay Thompson out.
Oh, there we go. So that is Jaden Hardy season. Dante
Dante
Exum is not
Exum
going to play enough minutes. He's not going to play enough minutes.
is available to play. All right, so he's going to probably start. Spencer Dinwiddie, Dante Exum, Max Christie, Kessler Edwards, Olivier Maxence Prosper. Is that your starting five?
I think that sounds right. I would also say now Max Christie to me is going to absorb a lot here. Max Christie is looking good in Dallas, and I think he gets to show it off a little bit today would be my guess. This is silly. It's so silly to talk about these games and they just immediately erode in the sand, but that's the joy
And
of
it's
NBA
only
DFS.
5 games, but it's just everybody's on a back-to-back, so it's especially heightened. We'll let Live Before Lock cover that with updated data as we jump to Oklahoma City, -9 at Minnesota, 225.5. Just got word, and now I'm going to have to rerun everything that I'm doing on my end here and try to update everything here on the fly. But I think OKC is still pretty clean as far as what I'm looking at. I think it's going to be pretty close. Nobody's pulling any ownership whatsoever because Chet Holmgren rests the front end of the back-to-back. He's available to play. Spags, did you know he's from Minnesota and going back to his old stomping grounds?
In fairness, you were the first one to highlight that to me yesterday. And I was like, wow, that's a great point by Eric. And you know what happened around the content industry and every YouTube chat I saw today? Because I put content on in the background, stochastic stuff, other stuff. Everybody's like, did you know that Chet Holmgren's from Minnesota? It's a really big deal.
Stab me.
I'm with you on the concept of this too, because like it seems like it does matter, like a true Minnesota boy. I think he's worth taking shots on if you are playing a 20 max, 150 max, probably one entry, I wouldn't do it. But with him being projected for 1% ownership, maybe a little more effort to get some blocks, maybe a little more usage flows his way. Nobody's owned on OKC, so I think that's the positive. I think there's also tournament merits for SGA just because he's $11,000 and nobody's going to want to pay it, but certainly he's got that upside. But more likely, Chet probably gets a little more usage, plays high 20s minutes, and the price tag's not great on paper. Nobody here, I think, on the Thunder projects that well right now. But I would take a few shots on Chet just for fun on the slate for, everything's moved around anyway, so fuck it. Just Chet Holmgren a little bit.
Oh, my God. Frickin' Chet Holmgren. I mean, my thing is like, the Rudy Gobert piece is just a huge domino from this game because, like, they have to start Luka Garza against Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, you can't go small against that front court. It's just gigantic now.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. Like Naz Reid, I think against one center could do okay, but against the Twin Towers front court, I mean, you could also just go the opposite way and try to go real small, but OKC will smoke you there too. So that's
not just absolutely shove it where the sun don't shine if you want to do that against OKC. I mean, we're just absolutely screwed no matter what. So why don't you just rest Ant? Like, at this point, I'm team rest everybody on Minnesota.
Though Ant, I'll tell you what, he would shoot 50 times if he's on the court for this one. He went, 10 for 33 yesterday. He's been shooting a ton, obviously, with all the guys that are out. It would be fun if he plays. Also, Gobert hasn't missed a game this year, it looks like. So I don't even know like what the rotation would look like without Gobert.
Well, that's why I'm just kind of thinking through it for the first time as I'm updating my stuff on the Minnesota side as we talk OKC. I can't imagine you're going to get to like anything with everybody in on that side. I mean, OKC is now the Western Conference version of what teams do when they play the Celtics, where they just rest everybody from time to time. And you probably should.
Yeah, I mean, because you're going to get blown out anyway. Like that, what they did to the Heat yesterday was like, it goes under the radar. Probably some viral social media posts around it, I think, that I saw this morning too.
8 points.
Like 25-0 run. Like they gave a 25-0 run to the Thunder, which is, I don't know how you do that. That's impossible.
So I've been running really good in terms of totals and spreads lately, and I've been running horrendous in props, and obviously props are what I do more, so that's always a great feeling. Getting that CLV though, go team. Anyway, I had the under of 102.5 team total for Miami. They had 90 something points going into the fourth quarter, and they scored 8. They scored 8 points in the entire fourth quarter. I was watching it. I couldn't believe when I looked and saw that ticket cashed. Could not believe it.
Hey, great pick by you. That's you knew that going in. You knew exactly that was how it's going to go.
Yeah, I was so happy to see Tyler Hero out there murdering them in the first half and then came back to earth. So that's what we needed there. 8 points in the fourth quarter. That's the one I thought you were going to reference that I thought went under the radar a little bit.
There was a screenshot that I think it was on Twitter where it was like the 85 points, whatever they had, whatever they got stuck on. It was like, oh, the Thunder were down 10 and then nope, they're up 15. And they didn't score a single point in between.
Yeah, it is just like a flat line now looking at it at popcornmachine.net times a flat circle. And that's a line that you run into when you play OKC. All right. I tried to stall as much as I could because I wanted to get the most updated stuff we possibly could for this. Rudy Gobert out. That is ridiculous. This is the first time we've had Rudy Gobert out. I have to imagine that they start Luka Garza. Are we really going to start Jaden McDaniels at the 4 and Nas at the 5 against Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein? We will get absolutely destroyed. So I'm hoping Ant's out. I hope we just punt this entire thing, maybe even give Nas the night off. But I mean, Minnesota's completely different, Spags.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's just Nas Reed who's been the direct backup. Like Garza hasn't even been in the rotation. So my assumption would be they try to go Nas Reed, Alexander Walker, and if he's playing, if Ant's not playing, all things are out the window. McDaniels, and then maybe Jalen Clark is your 5th, would be my guess to put in. It's possible they don't go Garza, but I agree. If Garza plays, he's still one fantasy point per minute guy, gets pretty high usage. He would meaningfully change the outlook here. But I'm not sold. I'm not sold that he does start. I agree that that's what they should do, but I don't know if that's what they will do.
Well, we saw the most minutes by far for Terrence Shannon. Again, I'm a Minnesota fan, so I'm pretty acquainted with this team more than most. But Terrence Shannon, he was the 27th pick or 28th pick from Illinois, and not really known for his scoring, but can get a bucket if need be. And if you get Ant out, I think he probably gets the start after he played 20 minutes yesterday. I'm not going to say that Clark just is an afterthought by any means, or that they want to have Clark coming off the bench. I think it's, fine for either one of them, but he ended up getting the lion's share of minutes over Jalen Clark. Jalen Clark will be part of this rotation no matter what, but it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where if Ant ends up playing this game that we wouldn't want to try to at least take shots on Ant and just hope that he shoots it 35 times, as you said before. But like, if he ends up out, trying to figure out who that next starter would be, I think Terrence Shannon is your most likely number 2.
So I'm just looking through the rotation. So Clark came in when Reed went off. So they played Clark as your 3/4 guy. I guess, the 4 would probably be Jaden McDaniels. He moves up. So that's my assumption is McDaniels plays 4. Nas Reed plays 5. And then Jalen Clark plays the 3. Shannon could play it. Shannon came in the game yesterday, both times when Jaden McDaniels went out. So he, to me, seems like he'd be the backup 3/4 no matter what. He's been an okay per minute guy on the year, Terrence Shannon. 0.76, 21% assist rates, 18% usage. Clark is like a nothing player to me. I think he's just the body that exists. So I probably wouldn't play Clark no matter what. Shannon, if he were to play, I'd take the shot. Ant being out's the key thing here, because if Ant's out, you literally play anybody I think you want. You'd favor Nas Reed, you'd favor the guards, you'd favor McDaniels a little bit, but everybody will look projectable to play if Anthony Edwards is out.
Okay, this is what I just can't stand. That's literally what Shannon is known for. Evan Peterson. No, he's fucking not. 36.2% three-point shooting his senior year at Illinois, and now you move the line back. What are you actually talking about? Do you actually look at stats, or do you just talk? 55.9% effective field goal percentage his senior year in the Big Ten. Are you joking me? Are you actually joking me? He's a terrible shooter. He was a volume scorer at Illinois. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And in the pros, 53% true shooting, which would not be good either. 50% from free throw.
That'd be bad too.
Yeah, 27% from 3. He literally doesn't shoot well in any category right now. So at least so far, small sample size.
Minnesota's such a cluster today. This is going to be a disaster. Have fun to the dev team. I do not wish this on my worst enemy, trying to project out what this is supposed to be pre-flop, and then having to wait around on this Ant Q tag is truly abhorrent, because we could get a ton of pieces there. We already have a ton of pieces now on Dallas with Kyrie Irving out. Everything's updated, ready to rock for Live Before Lock, which will be coming up in 4 minutes. But before we get there, obviously, Portfolio EV. Want to talk about it here because you can sign up for it down at the link below. You can also sign up for it there in chat. You have a great opportunity, friends. You have a great opportunity to jump over Check out Portfolio EV, and no matter which state you're in, whether that be Maine with one sportsbook, Florida with one sportsbook, in the Hard Rock, Oregon one sportsbook, you can still find the best edges every single day, no matter where you live. Arizona, social sportsbooks out in California. You have an awesome opportunity in all of these different states to take advantage of the best market-based tool in the industry. Check out the tutorials that Lofty's doing there on a day-to-day basis. Have an opportunity to check out the Portfolio EV show that precedes this. Great opportunity to jump in and make yourself some money that can help supplement your DFS income as well. Stay in the game, because we all know that that's what it's about when you're trying to win one of these big cheap PPs, obviously utilizing the tools to the best of your ability, but also checking out Portfolio EV so you can bet and make money alongside it. Check out Portfolio EV. Great opportunities. And yeah, I absolutely love some of the new stuff. The Onyx odds now available. If you guys aren't familiar, get yourself familiarized with Onyx odds. That's going to be really fun as well. $2. Let them know, Lindy. Thank you. I did. Eat a Snickers, bro.
Chat is fighting amongst themselves. So let's all calm down. It's the last day before the All-Star break. Let's all get some positive vibe. You know what? I think what'll help get people aligned, Eric, for this last game. I hear you getting all worked up about this Terrence Shannon character. What's the big deal? He's a natural scorer. I don't know why we need to talk about that. But at this point, guys, this slate's a mess. Let's bring... I'm moving my own hands with them. It's not how you do ventriloquism. Let's all distract ourselves with a little bit of a showy... It gets better. It gets better, chat.
Bam Adebayo ruled out.
Oh, good. It's like the parents fighting. It's like I have to go be a distracting little theater
Everybody's sitting. Everybody's sitting. I have Khalil Ware. Oh my God. Nice ad read, idiot. Thanks, both basketballs. You can go to fucking hell. Hide user on this channel. Okay. We have one more game to cover. The Clippers at Utah. This just got off the rails. 9.5-point favorites, and probably going to change here a little bit because, I mean, Kyle Filipowski is more than likely about to start for the Utah Jazz. Not known for his defense, Kyle Filipowski out of Duke. How about that for knowing ball, No, we're not going to go down that path anymore. We've got ourselves some interesting ownership because nobody on the Clipper side, even with Kawhi Leonard out, going to pull anything of note compared to what we've got elsewhere, except for Zubac and Harden, because they are awesome plays, I think. Chris Dunn, do we feel like Chris Dunn on this slate with other value? I shall see, but I would need him to start. This is the last game of the night. You're not necessarily going to know that for sure. Starts at 9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. Pacific, and every chalky game will have started by then. Spags, how good are Zubac and Harden relative to other options in those ranges for today's slate?
I think Zubac looks really good. Kel'el Ware is going to change things a little bit because he looks like an absolute obliteration play to me with Bam being out, given the matchup we talked about with Dallas. But Zubac was getting him about 41% before this. I think I'll still get a good amount. I'm comfortable with that. A little bit low on Harden right now of only 18% compared to the field's 31. I have no issue going there. It's just like the 9K price tag is a little bit harder to hit. Maybe with this value opening up, which it's been a steady stream of throughout the back half of the show, I think Harden will be a little bit more achievable now, but Zubac was easier to get to before. Norm Powell doesn't look bad. He was basically almost an all-star before Kawhi came in. Now Kawhi's back out, so you have to give him a little boost. Not chasing Chris Dunn. Amir Coffey with the Q tag would open up some more minutes, but I think these guys, there's now much better value on the slate. Your stars for the Clippers are the main thing here. A little bit of a pace up technically for them going against Utah. Shitty defense. That all helps out the Clippers, who have one of the better totals on the slate.
Yeah, I'm not going to even cite ownership right now because it's just going to change so wildly with Bam Adebayo now ruled out, with all of the pieces in Minnesota that we've got to figure out, and now Utah. But of course, Live Before Lock's going to have you covered. This is going to be as important as possible to be there. And then I will be on playback with Greg, hanging out at, what is that? Once again, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. So watch Live Before Lock, then watch Greg and I cover everything after the fact there. I'm going to go get a bucket of beer. That'll calm me down. That'll be lovely. But anything else that you want to cover here on the Clipper side? Because I think it's pretty straightforward. With just Kawhi, that's going to be so much worse than every other spot. They obviously get the pace up here against Utah, but it's basically Zubac, Harden, and nothing else that I really want to get to.
Yeah, I would still defend Powell, but I am very anti-Chris Dunn at this point. Yeah. Chris Dunn, to me, I think just don't play him. There's going to be better value that opens up from everything else.
All right. Well, Kyle Filipowski is just drastically going to change this slate for me because he's 4,900. He is known for his offense, and we're going to want to roster a little bit of him for sure with no Walker Kessler out there. But we currently still have John Collins and Lauri Markkanen in, which is a little bit shocking to me. Just saying, be on high alert because you could see these guys trickle down and get eliminated. Isaiah Collier has been filling up the box score in terms of the assists and rebounds here of late. We've got John Collins, who now is going to be able to go out and do whatever he wants and potentially see a big spike in the rebound rate. And Lauri Markkanen just tournament shots, but otherwise, we basically just have Kyle Filipowski and a bunch of like guys as lineup filler. Round it out for us, Spags. Who are your favorite Utah targets?
I'm probably going to get a lot of John Collins now because we have Kessler out. I think he does play a little more true center there. We'll gain in the rates. And as we talked about before, he's been about a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy this year. So him getting Kessler out, that was when he was going nuts, is when Kessler was out for a longer stretch. I think Collins looks good. Markkanen, I'm surprised would play. If he doesn't play, I think you're going to get Steve McHale looking good. Markkanen's in. I actually don't like him that much. There might be some smaller sample size rates to look at. They see the chat talking about that might look like a reason to get there more, but I'm not sold on it. He's been only a 1 flat fantasy point per minute guy this year. That could come up a little bit more, but his price tag's high. I'm just not sold on Markkanen. Collins looks good to me, though. I think Keontae George will look good as well. Probably doesn't gain a whole lot from the Kessler injury. I'm low on Collier, though. Not really getting any of him. I just am as well projected as everybody else does. But yeah, Utah, look, there's a lot of things that are moving around here. Watch out for the Utah guys being out. But if they're not, I think John Collins looks pretty good right now.
The fact that you and I got to do the deeper dive makes me happy. The fact that these are the two slates where most of what we just talked about is irrelevant, those are not the best, but that's why we have Live Before Lock in companion with Deeper Dive. Check out Portfolio EV here as well. Just to round out the bet section there, Jordan Klein, did you have that up on screen? Just show Portfolio EV for the people. Anything that stood out from that game? Because again, things are going to be moving around. Some of the unders, well, they're not going to look as good if you had a piece that, potentially is going to be walking into a larger role, but you're going to want to pay very close attention here to Utah as they get updated because we could see some inflated numbers on John Collins, Lauri Markkanen, and remember, it's a back-to-back. So maybe if things get out of control, you're looking really good with some of those unders if you parlay them together in the old Pick'em streets or over there in the parlay builder at OddsShopper. You'll be in good shape. But Chris Spags, at Chris Spags over on X, tell the people where they can find you.
You can check out my NBA channel at Splashplay NBA. I do streams there every day before this one. Obviously, we'll be a week off here, but appreciate you guys checking that out and subscribing over there. And shout out to Eric for a good show. Shout out to Jordan for producing. It's been a fun run here. It's been chaos, but that's why we enjoy this. It might not seem like it when we do the stream, but that's why, Eric, that's why we enjoy this. I have to remind you. That's why we love this.
Yeah, Terrence Shannon, such a great, unbelievable scorer, efficient shooter, that is for sure. Craig Ehrenberg, Matt Belman, coming up here on Live Before Lock. We'll see you guys in an hour over on Playback.
the worst thing that could happen to anybody ever.
I hate that feeling. Fucking hate that feeling.
All right, what is happening, everybody? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. I'm sure that you guys just sat here for the last hour listening to what was a fairly worthless deep dive because of the amount of things that have changed over the course of the last 15 minutes. But let's be real. Whatever Eric told you was going to be worthless anyway. But now we got the real information for you because, I mean, we just got shit breaking left and right here. We've had Walker Kessler ruled out, Rudy Gobert ruled out, Mike Conley ruled out, Kyrie Irving ruled out, Klay Thompson ruled out, Bam Adebayo ruled out. This is all within the last 20 minutes. And there's more to come still as well. This is all related to the All-Star break about to start. Teams trying to get guys some extra rest here. Anthony Edwards, he's still officially questionable to play. Amir Coffey is questionable to play. And, you know, on a 5-game slate, usually somebody like Coffey being questionable would kind of matter, Matt, because we're kind of starved for value on a lot of these smaller slates. Not the case today with all the players that have been ruled out. Our projections are all updated for you guys, and we're going to bring you some of that updated information, as well as what Matt and I's opinions are on those projections, and then also what we want to do with this information, because like we just went through, lots of players have gotten ruled out just in the last few minutes. So if you can do us a favor, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate it a whole bunch. If you guys have any questions for us at all, leave a super chat. If you're a Stokastic sub, one of the perks of having a Stokastic membership is you do get access to that Discord channel. It comes with every single package on our site. So if you have questions for me and you're in our Discord channel, hit me up. Also, if you're a sub and you're not in our Discord channel, join the Discord channel. I saw some people asking how to get into Discord the other day. I want to ask you right away here, Matt. Well, first, how are you doing? Everything good?
I'm good, but we can skip the small talk because I know you want to ask me something very important about the slate.
Of all the injury news that has broke in the last 20 minutes, which is going to be most important to your lineups?
It's got to be Bam. You know, Miami now, like already shorthanded coming into the night with no Rozier, no Wiggins. Now without their top dog, like it's Miami in a really good spot against a depleted Dallas team. I mean, that game in general, but I would say Bam. How about you?
Bam's a big. I'm going to have to say Kyrie being out just because there's such a void of usage now on the Dallas Mavericks because this team is already crazy shorthanded. Like you look at who's available for Dallas now tonight. And what do we have here for available players? Dallas has Christie, Najee Marshall, Olivia Maxence-Prosper, Dinwiddie, Kessler Edwards, Jaden Hardy, Dante Exum, Brandon Williams, Kyler Kelly. They've only got 9 active guys today. And then you're also missing 2 pretty high usage guys, especially in Kyrie, a very high usage guy. So to me, I think that the Dallas Mavericks one, just because earlier in the day, if you were building out lineups with the assumption that Kyrie was in, with the assumption that Klay Thompson was in, you were going to be getting to some of those guys. We also weren't going to be getting to all these ancillary pieces from Dallas. We're just going to be popping up like crazy now. And that's actually where I want to start here. Jordan, could you pull up the projections for the Dallas Mavericks? And like I said, we're going to go through all of these teams here and all of the injury news that is broken recently. But we'll start here with Dallas. And I think this kind of paints a picture for why this team is so important, Matt, because we've got here on the Dallas Mavericks, look at how many players project well relative to what their salary is. The most expensive player on the team on DraftKings, it's Najee Marshall at $5,500. He's projected for over 30 fantasy points. Dinwiddie's projected for over 30 fantasy points. Christie's projected for over 30 fantasy points. So all of these guys look really, really strong as options. Do any of them stick out more than the others to you?
For me, it's going to be Dinwiddie. He's going to have the ball in his hands. The matchup just got a lot better. You know, Miami's depleted. He's way too cheap for this role. You know, obviously, no Luka, RIP to Dallas Luka, and no Kyrie. So Dinwiddie's the next guy up, and he's a more than competent fantasy producer. You know, he's going to have the ball in his hands. I like Marshall. He would be the next guy or you know what? He wouldn't be the next guy because the other guy that I like almost as much as Dinwiddie is Christie. He's just looked amazing. I like Christie no matter what. Now with more guys out, I just like him even more. And when I say amazing, I mean relative to Max Christie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then some of this, obviously, also, we're still waiting on starting lineup. So that's something that could maybe change the equation here a little bit because for the Dallas Mavericks, I don't even know that it's a lock that Dinwiddie starts. I think it's very, very, very likely that he starts, but they could start Jaden Hardy as well.
They could start Brandon Williams.
Yeah. Do they start Dante Exum? or do they start Jaden Hardy? Like, there's a lot of different pieces they could go to here. Right now, we've got Jaden Hardy projected for 22.5 minutes. He looks good in 22.5 minutes, but if Jaden Hardy starts, then all of a sudden Jaden Hardy's projected for nearly 30 fantasy points at his price point. He would look really strong. So there's a lot of different pieces here that could end up moving around to make things look a little bit different. But yeah, as of right now, Dallas Mavericks, like I was saying, this is a team that we're going to want to be getting a lot of exposure to of the cheap guys. So, and by cheap guys, I mean they're all relatively cheap. Outside of Najee Marshall, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Max Christie, all of whom are priced above 5K, who are the cheaper guys on the team that stand out to you the most?
So this brings me into a talking point. The guy from the tools that stands out the most is going to be Jaden Hardy, but I don't have confidence in that. He's been replaced in the rotation recently by Brandon Williams. Now, that doesn't mean that's going to last forever. We know Hardy's a guy they've had and they've liked for a little bit now, but like the recency bias in me has a tough time, thinking that Hardy is playing over Williams. Williams played well last night. He was in the rotation. I think they both could be in the rotation. So based on the tools, it's Hardy. I'm skeptical though. How about you?
For me, it's going to be Hardy, especially because of just this team being so devoid of playmakers. Like, we've seen this in the past where Dinwiddie starts, but Hardy comes off the bench. Hardy plays a little bit better. And then you look back and I'd say, like, oh, I'm an idiot. I should have just played Hardy instead. Or vice versa could happen. Hardy could start and then he could end up playing like 25 minutes. And then it's somebody off the bench who ends up playing better. So to me, it's going to be who is it that comes off the bench that maybe isn't pulling quite as much ownership, which I think is going to end up being Jaden Hardy. Now we're about to be getting a projections. We have a projections update, an ownership update that I haven't quite looked at yet. So maybe I'm incorrect there, and maybe he is just massively popular. But Jordan, could you pull up the ownership projections now? I want to see where some of these Dallas players are landing in our projected ownership. All right, yeah, Dinwiddie right towards the top. We got him a lot of ownership, but nothing crazy considering the spot. 51% ownership on a 5-game slate doesn't seem massively problematic to me. But yeah, look at. I mean, we got Jaden Hardy at 8% owned at $3,500 with the chalk going to Spencer Dinwiddie. Obviously, I really like Dinwiddie as a chalk piece. I think he's really good. But in a lineup that doesn't have him, I think Hardy at, what is that, like 1/17 of the ownership, it's a pretty reasonable pivot because there's a chance that Hardy just ends up playing better of the two and gets himself extra minutes.
Why Hardy over Brandon Williams would be my question. Other than that's what the projections are saying.
Yeah. So for me, yeah, part of it, our projections do prefer him. But then also, when we've seen the Mavericks shorthanded earlier in the season, they lean on Hardy more. And it's even been times that he hasn't been in the rotation recently. They still typically...
That's fair. But it's not like Brandon Williams is a guy that like is usually in the rotation. So it is concerning, at least to me, that like he's playing over him. But to your point, though, this is a whole different situation. I wouldn't be shocked if Hardy starts, to your point.
Yeah. So right now, though, just based on what our projections are, the price point, the ownership and all that, I like Jaden Hardy as a contrarian piece. There's an opportunity for him to get extended minutes.
100%. And he's also a guy that, if he gets the minutes, he's going to produce. Like, we don't know that about Brandon Williams. Like, we haven't seen him, and he hasn't really been that good in minutes. So I'm with you on the Hardy call. It makes sense for especially playing a bunch of lineups.
All right, let's see. Which team do we want to go to next? So we just hit on the Dallas Mavericks news. Let's pull up. I was going to say the Minnesota Timberwolves, but let's hold that until later just because Ant's still questionable. So maybe we end up finding out still during the time frame of the show that Ant is ruled out or something like that. So we'll look at the Utah Jazz next with Walker Kessler being ruled out. I want to ask you, though, before we start talking about the Jazz in particular, just because I brought it up, do you have a lean on whether Ant is in or out today?
I mean, I definitely lean is that, I don't know. I guess, yeah, my lean is that he's in. TNT game against OKC. He usually plays, as to your point, like he's a guy that is, if he can get out there, he's going to get out there. Does make me a little worried that they're resting everyone else, but I think he plays. How about you?
I tend to think he does as well. He was questionable with the same injury yesterday. If he doesn't play, maybe just not 100%. They want to get him the extra rest. The way I see it, though, is that if they were really planning on holding him out, and this is also just a best guess, this is not anything, definitive or anything like that. But My feeling is that he would have been ruled out with the other guys, Mike Conley and Gobert, when they were ruled out 30 minutes ago, if they were planning on sitting Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, good call. I agree with that. I mean, unless he's like truly like 50-50 to play, which I just can't see. He played last night with the injury. He was good. I'm with you. Like, I think that he's more likely to play than not.
All right, let's go ahead now and look at the Utah Jazz. Could you just filter for the player projections, if you wouldn't mind, Jordan? Let's look at the Utah Jazz player projections, not ownership. And go to Utah. So for Utah, I'm really surprised by the Utah situation here, Matt. And do you think there's a chance we still get more guys ruled out? Because Lofty and I earlier, we were doing our betting show. We do a betting strategy show on the OddsShopper channel as well in the afternoon, where we look at Portfolio EV, some of the bets on the board, and we try to also align the show around when news is coming out. So there might be news that we could react to place bets on. I thought we weren't going to see Walker Kessler today. I thought we weren't going to see John Collins. I thought we weren't going to see Lauri Markkanen. Markkanen hasn't played a back-to-back since the very start of the season. It's like the second week of the season he played a back-to-back. They've sat him in all of them since then. So I just thought it was reasonable to assume, why would he play in this one leading up to the All-Star break? But they ruled out Walker Kessler. We only have Lauri Markkanen or John Collins on the injury report. Should we be concerned about, one, their playing time, or B, if they even end up playing at all? Like, is there a chance that we find out 20 minutes from now that they're just out?
Certainly a possibility. I mean, I feel like that's always a possibility in the NBA streets. Like, that's just how it goes. And then on a night like tonight, where, like as you mentioned, right before the All-Star break, all these teams played last night as well. So that's throwing another wrench into it. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we saw that. I mean, Kessler wasn't even on the injury report. I tend to think that, like, if they're playing, they're in. Like, I don't think that there's that much of a reason to like play Markkanen and then not play him a lot. Like, if you just don't want to play him, don't play him. But I could be off there. So yeah, I kind of expect the unexpected from Utah. I'm not sure where they're going to go with this.
I'm just taking it at face value for now. Like, I'm definitely open to the possibility that these guys don't end up playing, that we might see, Lauri Markkanen or John Collins ruled out. I will say this definitively. If they aren't ruled out, but the starting lineup comes out and Lauri Markkanen isn't in it, we see these situations arise at times. He won't play in that situation. Like, maybe they just need him for an emergency, that they don't want to rule him out for that reason, where they're going to be super shorthanded. That could be the scenario that we're looking at here. So I would be very skeptical of any veterans that are not starting for the Utah Jazz today. But as things stand right now, I think these are going to be the guys who are in. And with that being in mind, do you like any cheap value pieces from the Utah Jazz?
Not really. I mean, it's just a slate where there's too many good plays. And, we only have Kessler out for right now. And Utah, like, all their guys are expensive-ish, like all the guys you want to play. And as far as like the cheap guys, like, we don't have a Jokic to spend on. We don't have really expensive guys. So I don't really see the need to dumpster dive into the Utah value unless we start getting more guys out, I guess.
So the one that's interesting to me is, what do they do with Walker Kessler's starting spot? Because do they end up starting Kyle Filipkowski? They haven't started him much this year, but with that said, other times that they've been shorthanded, they've started Eubanks, and that's not an option now. So I do think there's an opportunity for a cheap fifth starter. And if it is somebody like Filipkowski, who we have projected for 29 minutes right now, it's not the highest priority play on the slate with the amount of value you have, but it's somebody who's in play who wouldn't have been if Walker Kessler was playing.
Yeah, totally with that.
But yeah, relative to the other spots on the slate, this is a fairly weak value spot right now, pending what ends up happening with any other players getting ruled out. Next, let's go ahead. We've looked at Dallas. We've looked at Utah. So now let's look at the Miami Heat with Bam Adebayo out, and then we'll go and we'll look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, because that will be the last team to look at updates for. Minnesota, no Bam Adebayo today. He's out with a knee contusion. Also tail end of back. Every team that's playing today, it's worth noting, tail end of back-to-back, since every single team played yesterday. How important is Khalil Ware to you? Is this an unavoidable piece of chalk on the slate now that Bam is out?
For me, he is. I'm playing one lineup and I'm playing him. So,
okay.
Yeah, for me, he looks like one of the best plays on the slate now. I mean, I know that the minutes have kind of been fluctuating a bit, but that's really because of Bam. So with no Bam here, I don't really see like the minutes floor like we've seen recently, and we know that he can get there even in like less minutes than others. So I think he looks really, really good at 6,100. This Dallas team doesn't even have a center. So I guess the concern would be that like Miami doesn't play, like Miami just doesn't play him, but I don't know. He's like a guy that can get up and down the floor. Like he's not a traditional big. He's just actually big, and Dallas has no size.
And then we've also got Tyler Hero. He's getting a bump in the absence of Bam. We've got Nikola Jovic. Do you think Jovic starts alongside Ware in the front court now?
Yeah, potentially. I like both a lot. I like all three you mentioned, Hero, Ware, and Jovic. Three of the top, I don't know, 10, 15 plays on the slate in my mind.
Yeah, I definitely look at all three of them as being really strong options. I do think Jovic starts. Jovic has also played better this year than he played last year. We did get news that Duncan Robinson, he's in. That's official. He was dealing with an illness. We did have Tyler Hero was questionable earlier, but it seems he's going to be good to go for today. And then, like you said, also good matchup for them against the Dallas Mavericks. So we've got these three guys all projecting extremely well. There is one other guy that I'm kind of interested from the team who's really hard to make heads or tails of. With them being shorthanded, we've seen Jaime Jaquez Jr. in and out of favor in Miami. And he's not somebody who is going to be crazy popular today. He projects okay. We've got him projected for 21 fantasy points here, only 5% projected ownership. If I'm taking a chance on one contrarian player from the Miami Heat, Matt, it's going to be Jaquez for me. Do you have a contrarian guy that you like for Miami?
Definitely Jaquez for me also. Like I might play him in my one lineup. I'm not sure. I don't know if I'll be able to get there, but I'm with you there. I'm a Jaquez fan in general. Like I love his game. Uh, he's had a more up and down season than I think many, himself included, would have hoped. But he at 4K with shooting guard, small forward eligibility on a lot of slates, he'd be like a must play for me. He's not that tonight because of how much value we have, but I love him in the contrarian sense. I'm with you.
All right, let's see what we have for questions here. And then I'm going to wait as long as we possibly can to look over the Minnesota Timberwolves just in case we end up finding out that Ant is ruled out, and then we'll just only have to cover them once instead of twice. So a few questions here waiting for us. Let's hit on those. Also, shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Chris, thank you very much, as always, for supporting the show. Anybody else who wants to support us, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or sign up for any of our DFS packages. That also helps keep our content free and on YouTube here. If you guys are looking to play DFS this weekend, you know what's going on this weekend, Matt?
Unfortunately, I do. NASCAR.
The Daytona 500. I don't know shit about cars, NASCAR, racing, any of it. But I'll be playing some NASCAR lineups using our sims this weekend. If you guys want to, sign up using the link down below in the YouTube description box. Use that promo code PITSTOP to get yourself 50% off. You don't have to know anything about the races. You just have to know how to click a few buttons, and our tools are going to do the rest of it for you. So check it out. Get yourself a nice 50% off discount with the promo code PITSTOP. So if you want to sign up for a monthly package, a weekly packages, our data package, a Sims package, 50% off any package that you decide is best for you with that promo code PITSTOP. It's already loaded into the link down below in the YouTube description box. All right, questions. We've got one here from Coach DFS, wants to know DK Cash Blaze. All right, there's a lot of ways we could go with this. Who are the must-play guys in cash as of right now, Matt?
Got to be Alvarado, Dinwiddie, Christie, Alvarado, Dinwiddie, Christie, Ware,
and Jovic.
I guess maybe not Alvarado anymore. His sliding now because of the Dallas. Like Omax has more ownership than him. I personally like Alvarado more, but yeah, I think Dinwiddie, Christie, Ware, Jovic, maybe Alvarado. But there are like, it's weird. It's not like last night where like 3 guys were pulling a ton of love and then like no one else was. This one tonight is like kind of, the pool is just really, really condensed and a bunch of guys are getting a lot of ownership.
Yeah. The most popular ones, though, just to recash the ones we hit on there: Christie, Jovic, Ware, Dinwiddie, I'm kind of on the fence. Here's what I'm going to say about Alvarado. Really strong cash option, but not maybe a must play in cash. Close to it, though.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's right on the fence. Like, I think he'll be probably around 50% owned in cash games.
Makes sense. Yeah, we've got him projected for 38% ownership in large field GPPs right now. And then, yeah, still news pending to come too. Like, who knows what ends up happening with Ant today? That could open up all kinds of other value. Mod Dub T wants to know, how about Brandon Williams with him having an expanded role last night? Could he get more play today after seeing how he played? Maybe. There's another part of me that thinks this as well, though, Matt. Was there a chance they played Brandon Williams extra last night, knowing that Kyrie and Clay were going to be out, and they're like, "Hey, let's keep guys like Dinwiddie and Hardy a little bit better rested because we're going to need to lean on them more." He's the flat min. There's so many guys out that you could take a chance on him, but I'm not prioritizing Brandon Williams at all. I have him in. I just ran everything. I've got 2 out of 150 lineups with Brandon Williams. There's other places that I prefer to go to value. I see what you're seeing. I understand it there, Modub T. It's just I can only play so many players. He's not quite making the cut for me.
I'm like right in the middle of you guys. I'm not going to play him either, but I also think that him being in the rotation is more plausible than you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think he could definitely. He's going to be in the rotation. He's going to play an expanded role.
Over Hardy,
so if I'm just answering his question literally, then yes, I think he's going to play an expanded role relative to normal. The question, though, is will he outplay the other value options on the slate? That's where I don't think it's super likely, considering all the value options that have opened up.
Yeah, I'm taking it as like, would you play him over a Jaden Hardy is kind of how I'm looking at the question. And I wouldn't, but I think it scares me enough not to play Hardy.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Let's see what we have next. Coach DFS wants to know, what is the max exposure for any player for me today? I have over 80% of Dinwiddie and Khalil Ware as of right now. So that's the most I have of anybody is just over 80%. Next question is from Blinky. Blinky wants to know, any interest in Sabonis or Curry for FanDuel GPPs with all of the value that has been made available to us for today? Yeah, I think both Sabonis and Curry each look good. I don't have an issue with either of them. I prefer Sabonis between the two. I get more exposure to Sabonis than I do to Curry, but yeah, both of them very viable options. It kind of sucks that we have a stars and scrub slate, Matt, without any real stars. Like it would be great if we had a Jokic, Giannis, some of these guys to pay up for today. We don't quite have that. So that makes guys like Curry or guys like Sabonis, more so Sabonis for me, players who, yeah, I do think we need to be getting exposure to.
Definitely. And it's also like harder to get to those two in particular because the slate is kind of loaded with point guards and centers. So yeah, I'm with it.
Here's a question for you, kind of related to the Curry or Sabonis. Who's your favorite pay up option tonight?
Because it's such a limited pay up option slate, I'm going to say Tyler Hero at 8,300. A lot of good mid tier plays I like. Hero isn't like expensive, but he's, there aren't that many players on the slate more expensive than him. And I think he looks really, really good in this matchup with Bam out.
By the way, people in chat, I see not a lot of people, just a few people bringing up to me that SGA is playing tonight. That's true, but here's the problem. There are so many pieces available for OKC now. We only have SGA projected for about 50 fantasy points. Considering what his price point is, I just don't think that SGA, relative to the other guys that are the top end fantasy producers, like I don't think SGA is going to be on the same tier as like Jokic, Giannis, those kind of guys going forward. So that's really more so what I'm referring to. I just view SGA as being overpriced on this slate.
I agree with you. I think that he's like in play just because he projects as the highest scorer, but he's also not on the Jokic, Giannis like tier at all to me. And he's as expensive as those guys are getting close to it. Maybe that's to my detriment that he's not like on that tier, but those guys are just better from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, I mean, once again, we've got SGA, who is the most expensive player on the slate by far, but he's not the highest projected player on the slate by far. We've got Sabonis, Harden, and and a little bit less so. But all these guys in SGA kind of project about the same. SGA just happens to be, like $2,000 to $1,500 more expensive. So let's see what it is that we have next. Saw some injury updates. What's this? Jovic available to play, and Gary Payton the Mitten. He is out for tonight. All right, next question. It is from, I like this one. Mike Will 87. He wants to know a contrarian play for each position on each site. All right, let me update. I've got my DraftKings stuff updated. I don't have FanDuel updated quite yet. So let's circle back to this question in like 5-ish minutes after I do an update of my FanDuel lineups, and then I'll be set for both FanDuel and DraftKings. So I've got that earmarked to come back to there for Mike. Ethan 7 wants to know, anyone under 10 to 15% on that we're boosting in projections? All right, Matt, anybody who's sub 10% owned that you and I think should be a higher priority to get into lineups?
For me, yeah, there's one guy. I like a lot of the chalky pieces. I talk about this a lot in the NBA. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to get different everywhere. If you got one or two guys that aren't getting as much love as you think they should be, and they really do well, that's all you sometimes need. So for me, that guy is Norman Powell. I love him at 7,400, projected for slight under 13% ownership on DraftKings. Really good eligibility. He was awful in the first half last night. He had negative half a fantasy point in his first like 2 runs. Had finished the game with like 35 fantasy points. Now he gets like the nut matchup against Utah. No Kawhi. He's a guy that I could see playing, like even if Harden and to a certain lesser extent Zubac sit a little bit earlier if this game gets out of hand. No Coffee would only help that. So for me, that guy is definitely Norm Powell.
I brought up Hardy as one for me before. I like Hardy. Here's another one as well that I think is really, really interesting that I'm struggling with what to do with. Anthony Edwards. He considering when his game is being played in the questionable tag, he is going to be, we don't even have him projected to be all that popular now. He's going to be lower owned than he's projected. We might have a 5-game slate with a lot of value, kind of a lack of pay up options, Matt. And Edwards might be like 5% owned today. I'm really struggling with what to do with him, but I want to be overweight to what that current number is.
Yeah, I struggle with him too because he's taken like 53s. I'm exaggerating, but literally over 33s in his past 2 games. It's a brutal spot though against OKC. With him in though, it makes me like all the Utah, or all, like not all the Minnesota guys, but someone like Naz Reid even more because if he's in, this game could be competitive, and this is such a prime ant spot to just go nuts. So, yeah, I would definitely want to be over even the 11% he's projected right now for our playing 150.
By the way, we just got the Warriors starting lineup. Brandon Pajemski entering the starting unit today. So with Pajemski starting, let's see, what do we have?
And Draymond at center.
Yeah. So they got Quentin Post.
Moody's in also.
Yeah. So they've got Post to the bench.
Buddy Hield to the bench.
Which makes Buddy Hield has been dog shit lately. Terrible.
He was awful last night.
I wouldn't even be surprised if Buddy Hield is a DNP coach's decision. He was so terrible last night. Let me pull up the plus minus from last night. This could end up looking stupid because maybe he had like a good plus minus and my eyes deceived me when I was watching the game. But it felt like when Pajemski was in, the Warriors were going pretty well. And it was a disaster, especially on defense with Buddy Hield in. All right, let's see. All right, cool. It's always nice when the numbers kind of match with what I saw when I was watching the game, Matt. Buddy Hield played 28.5 minutes. He had a team worst negative 21 plus minus. Brandon Pajemski played 24.5 minutes. He had a team high 13 plus minus. So it's more or less how I remembered it while I was watching it. Makes all the sense in the world to me that he is starting tonight over Buddy Hield. I thought that was a possibility. Moody starting was not something that I saw within the cards here, but we got Moody is $4,400. Pajemski, he's up to $5,700. All right, $5,700 from on DraftKings. What is he on FanDuel? Pajemski is $5,600 on FanDuel. Moody is $4,700 on FanDuel. All right, so these guys aren't crazy cheap or anything like that. Moody, Pajemski, either of them of much interest to you?
I like Pajemski in general as a player. Not sure I love him in the starting lineup here at that price tag on this slate, but it does make me like everyone else on the Warriors even more. Like Pajemski's a guy that gets up and down the court, is, a great passer. Like I think their offense is going to flow a lot better than old Buddy Hield, who just likes to shoot threes. So I like man, I wish it were another slate because I really do like Curry, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler. Like all three of them have been playing really, really well since the trade. And this is a get up spot for Golden State. These teams have a little bit of bad blood, and the and I just could see like all these guys playing more than the public anticipates. It's just tough though because of how the slate is breaking down. To answer your original question, I don't think anyone on Golden State becomes like a must play.
Pajemski and Moody, they become, slightly more viable, but I can't imagine they're going to be in any more than like a couple lineups for me. There's so much value on the slate that we've already gone over, and guys are going to be projecting better. And it's still Steve Kerr and his dumbass rotations, right? What the hell does a starting lineup mean? He could just as easily be like, hey, cool, we started Pajemski. Well, guess what? I met this fan who has a mediocre jump shot outside. He's going to play some minutes for us today. Steve Kerr rotations are very, very unpredictable. There's other spots I prefer to go to, especially for a lot of our audience that's playing, 1, 2, 3 lineups. I would say Pajemski, Moody, don't have those guys in your lineups. All right, let's circle back to the question that we had before from Mike. Remember, Mike had asked us contrarian plays for each position on both sites. So, Matt, I'll let you handle the DraftKings side of it. I'll handle the FanDuel side. We got this question yesterday. We'll handle it the exact same way. We'll go position by position. I'll give out my favorite contrarian guy on FanDuel at the position. You give out your favorite contrarian guy on DraftKings for the position, and we'll go from there. Starting at point guard. All right, let's see. My updated FanDuel lineups. All right, point guard for me, that is going to be Isaiah Collier.
Mine is Steph Curry.
Okay. At shooting guard on FanDuel, that is going to be, for me, Jaden Hardy. Only 1% owned on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'll say Hardy also on DK.
At small forward, I'll go Edwards, 13% owned.
Norm Powell for me.
Power forward. Boy, there are not really very many guys that I like that are contrarian at power forward. I'll say Philip Kowski on the chance he starts.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I'll say Naz Reid on the chance that this game is competitive.
Yeah. And then at center for me, that'll be Şengün.
Center for me will be Luka Garza.
Okay. Don't mind that. Don't mind that at all. Let's see what we have for our next question in here. And also, once again, if you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Those really help support the channel. It only takes a half second of your time, and we appreciate it. The next question here is from M. Grizzly. He wants to know how much Hardy is too much Hardy. He says the Sims are getting him to 71%. That's a little much for me. The Sims aren't getting me to 71% of Hardy. He looks like a nice value contrarian option, but I'm not playing him in 71% of lineups. I would say, pending the starting lineup, like 15 to 20 is a reasonable number where you're well overweight to the field.
Agree.
And the next question is from COVID Bryant the second. COVID Bryant wants to know, am I getting to a lot of Miami and Dallas guys in your lineups? Yes. I mean, they're the best spots on the slate. You should be getting to a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go out of your way not to.
Every player that I have at least 40% exposure to is from Miami actually Alvarado I do right now. Other than him, all the other guys are from Dallas and Miami. And most of my most exposed players, it's either Dallas or Miami. Dinwiddie, Khalil Ware, Nikola Jovic, Alvarado also in that mix for me. Najee Marshall, Max Christie. These are the best guys on the slate. I'm totally fine with them being your most rostered players. And if you have lineups that have, because he says a lot of his lineups are in between 5 to 6 combined players from the Heat and the Mavericks, I don't have any issue at that at all. Do you have a max amount of players that you're willing to play from the Mavericks and or the Heat for today's slate? So basically, most max players from one team for you tonight.
I don't. I'm not like going out of my way to play, more than three, but if it happens, it happens. That's why Jaquez is probably on the outside looking in for me.
Yeah, I'm looking through my lineups. Yeah, it looks like I have some with 4. It's not like the players are so cheap to where you could easily fit, like 5 or 6 or anything like that. I think
Right.
four is probably a good number.
There are also really other good plays on this slate. So to your point, like Hero and Ware, they're not dirt cheap at all. And then like there's other really good plays tonight.
We've got Mod Dub T wants to know if Collins plays, is he a better start than Chet Holmgren? For me, let's see, do I have more of Chet or I prefer Collins to Chet. Yourself, Matt?
I prefer Collins also. I mean, especially now with Kessler out. Like Collins is a guy I could see walking into more minutes at the 5 here.
Another thing too, Chet's minutes haven't really been ramped up as of yet, right? I think his upside's kind of capped, considering that he's not at his ceiling price or anything like that. While he is cheaper than we normally see. Here's his minutes since coming back. He's only played 2 games. He's played 22 and 25 minutes. It's the game before the All-Star break. I think he plays full minutes post All-Star break. I think they hold him to still around like the 25-ish mark tonight, though.
I agree.
Let's see. We have Valentino wants to know how many minutes we think Hardy plays. It's going to depend on the starting lineup, but as of right now, I think like 22 to 23 is a fair projection. Keeping in mind, though, that there's a wide range of outcomes here. There's the upside for Hardy to play 30 plus minutes. There's a chance he just shits the bed, isn't making his shots, and he plays sub 20 minutes. So I find some of these players who have a wide range of outcomes that might be coming off the bench, but are really cheap and in advantageous situations. There are things more important to me than just how many minutes are they going to play, because it's really hard to project the minutes there. But like my best guess, somewhere in like the 22 to 23 range. Sick Tracks says Ben Simmons is active tonight for the Clippers. Any thoughts? Just don't play him.
Yeah, I'm not playing him. He is active, but he's 5,400 and projects for 20 fantasy points, so no thanks.
Yeah. No thank you there. No thank you on him.
It is funny though. Do you remember like the best Ben Simmons game of all time? I guess this isn't that funny. Was a game Embiid missed in Utah when he was still with Philly. It was like a monster Ben Simmons game. I think the best game of his career.
It is oddly not that far away since he made an all NBA team.
So weird.
He got injured, whatever the hell happened in that playoff series against the Hawks, where he really never bounced back from that series against the Hawks. I definitely think part of this is, just mental related and confidence combined with his body breaking down and just all that going south for him at the same time. But yeah, Ben Simmons was very good and all that long ago, and people are not going to remember him that way at all. I don't know that there's ever going to be a player who's made multiple all-NBA teams who'll be looked at as a bigger bust than Ben Simmons. Very few players make multiple all-NBA teams.
Yeah, he's going to be the answer to a really tricky trivia question. To your point, it was only 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, I guess, to this point, the game I'm talking about. He put up 42, 12, and 9 in Utah.
By the way, actually, he only made it's 1 all NBA team, 2 all NBA defense first teams, but still in all NBA
first teams and 2 defensive first teams. Like, yeah, not a lot of guys do that either.
3-time All-Star. He was an All-Star in 2021. 2021,
yeah,
it's 4 years ago, but that's kind of recent.
You know who the only, I know this is funny because we were just talking about this other guy on Twitter, but the comparison that people in Cleveland throw out sometimes because of just their play declining is Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, it's so much different. I mean, I
it's
guess
so much different, but they're both mental. Like there's a lot of outside factors. It's so much different, but in a lot of ways it's similar, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, the The Watson one, also, it's hard to know how much of his issues were, mental and all the scrutiny he took. And now, tears the Achilles, re-tears the Achilles. I think the difference is, though, I have empathy for Ben Simmons. I have zero for Deshaun Watson. He deserves all of the negative things that happened to him. But Ben Simmons, I do feel bad for the Ben Simmons situation because he doesn't seem to be a bad guy or anything like that, but he is so hated publicly.
I know I was going to say, like, I totally agree with you. Like, how could you not have more empathy for Ben Simmons than Deshaun Watson? But the public hates him. Like, the public hates Watson to a different level because of everything he was accused of doing. But for just a random, like, not a random, a good athlete that just isn't that good anymore, no problems or anything, the public hates Ben Simmons.
Yes. A lot. Just kind of like a pile-on. I don't even think there's a good reason to hate him. People have just decided. People have just decided they hate him because everybody else hates him.
Yeah, it's like groupthink. Hate Ben Simmons.
Let's see. We got Sick Tracks here. Wants to know top prop plays from Heat Mavs and Pels Kings. All right. Can you pull up OddsShopper really quick, Jordan? And we'll just see what's at the top of the board. I don't know. There's been so many players that have ruled out. I don't know what the line movements looked like over the course of the show here or anything like that. But we have, all right, so some top props from Heat Mavs and Pels Kings. We've got Khalil Ware is plus money for under 11.5 rebounds. And let's see, from Pelicans Kings. I don't know if anything looks all that good from Pelicans Kings. Yeah, it looks like there's a lot on the board for the Mavericks and the Heat game, not as much from the Pelicans and Kings game. Yeah, tons of bets on the board right now. Interesting stuff. Go check out
one thing we didn't really
Portfolio
talk
EV.
about.
You guys are set.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. That we haven't talked about a lot because it's a weird slate in terms of the start times. Do you think there's any advantage? And there are still games that start at 8:30 and 9 that we don't know everything on yet. Like, how much of an advantage is, saving spots tonight, do you think?
Also, by the way, somebody posted in the YouTube chat, Anthony Edwards has not been ruled out. It doesn't mean that he for sure is playing, but somebody in the chat was saying Edwards is ruled out. He hasn't been ruled out, so had to remove him from the chats. It's really the only thing that will really upset me when people post is just making up fake news and putting it in the chat. So he's been removed. He has been removed. Sorry, what was that, Matt? I was removing the Ant Edwards guy.
I'll never understand why people will do that. I just don't get it, but I understand why that grinds your gears. I was asking about like late swap tonight and just having roster spots available for news we might not and don't know yet.
Yeah, so because my best guess is Anthony Edwards is playing, like I'm playing Edwards. And then it's a shorter slate if he does get ruled out, which Eric and I also will be in playback in 10 minutes. We'll be handling any of the news that ends up happening post-lock. But I am currently under the assumption that Edwards plays, and I want to be overweight to the field on him. That's how I'm handling that situation.
Makes sense.
Next question here. It is from... All right, we answered those. We've got a super chat here from Keith Wilson. Keith wants to know, is Dante Exum a play for us tonight, Matt?
Not for me.
Yeah, I've got 3% of them. For all intents and purposes, not really. Not really for me is the answer. The next question is from CG. CG DFS says, great info. All first half, fellas. Enjoy your well-deserved time off this week. I will not be having time off. I'll be trying to figure out how do I best put out content when there isn't NBA and NHL and whatnot going on. So no time off for me, but CG DFS has been killing it, both betting, DFS. He's got his tails package as well. So guys, follow CG DFS over on Twitter, and then also check out his tails package if you're looking for some bets from him. And then Shane Daly says Chuck Knobloch. Yeah, Knobloch's another one, although I could kind of understand. Do you remember Knobloch?
Yeah, he wasn't as good as the guys we're talking about, though, at his peak. Of course, I remember him, but he was very good, but he wasn't like an all like NBA, like top 5 potential guy in the league, or in Deshaun Watson's case, like that at a quarterback. He was very good. I know he was very good, but I mean, yeah, I guess 20 years from now, people will be like, Ben Simmons and Deshaun Watson, like they were just okay. So you're right. I mean, Knobloch was really good before he got the yips.
So, I mean, people are just going to forget about Knobloch. I mean, also, there's only 9 minutes left to go. So I'll just throw this out to you really quick. 1996 Chuck Knobloch season, second base, 8.1 wins above replacement. He was an MVP candidate.
Yeah, I'm sure he had a couple like really, really good years, but he wasn't like a, 10, 15 year all-star or anything like that.
Pierre says thoughts on Keon Ellis and Javonte Green on FanDuel. We did get that starting lineup for the New Orleans Pelicans, and it is so we've got Jose Alvarado, CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy, Javonte Green, and Yves Missi starting for the Pelicans. And then the Rockets, it's Aaron Holiday, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Amin Thompson, and Alperen Şengün. Nothing that was different than what was expected, though, here, really. So in terms of the Pelicans, with Javonte Green starting, there's just better value options to me. Like he's Keon Ellis, Javonte Green. If you had a lineup with these guys, I wouldn't say you have to take him out, but there's way higher priorities at the same time.
Yeah, no way I'd play either of them in one lineup is how I interpret the question.
Coach DFS said Knobloch had over 400 career stolen bases and almost 2K in hits. Yeah, he was pretty damn good. He was pretty good. And that is going to have us all caught up on questions here. So I want to ask you here now, Matt, if there was one piece of chalk on the slate that you were looking to maybe get away from, who would be that guy for you?
For me, that guy is James Harden. Expensive. He's projected for a ton of ownership, like as much as everyone but Dinwiddie and Ware, basically. It'd be Harden. He's expensive. I think there are good pivots in his price range, like Steph Curry. So for me, it'd be Harden. Always easier for me to get away from expensive chalk when there's guys like Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards right there priced with him than it is guys like Spencer Dinwiddie and Alvarado who are just completely mispriced.
Yeah, and still waiting on that Mavericks starting lineup. That's going to be a big one. That's likely going to be coming out when Eric and I are on playback. I want to know for you, as somebody who's only playing a single lineup today, how are you going to approach? Because it's different than how I'm playing it, right? And this is where I think it's kind of interesting, some of the dynamics of how you play DFS in the contest you play in versus me, max entering stuff. How are you approaching the Anthony Edwards situation? I mentioned I'm playing him today. I'm getting overweight to the field on him. But what are you doing in one lineup? Are you just avoiding the Timberwolves? What's your consideration?
I probably won't play. Well, I will not play him if he's in, just because I can't get there in one lineup. Too many concerns as far as the game environment, etc. If he's out, then I'll really have to consider like a Rob Dillingham or see what that starting lineup looks like. The only player I'm playing in the early set is Jose Alvarado. More importantly for me, though, like I already know how this goes. Every time like I try to push back and fight with you on someone like Jaden Hardy, he's definitely starting tonight after all that. So I know I'm going to have to change everything for that. So that is where my mind is at, not necessarily the Anthony Edwards situation.
I mean, to be clear, I don't think he starts.
I know, but he is going to know.
There's sometimes I'll have like a good guess for a starting lineup with some, like weird sort of situations. I don't even have a best guess for the Dallas Mavericks. It could go so many different ways with their starting five.
Are you worried at all tonight? Like anywhere across the board, this could be taken like where guys are like kind of like you mentioned with Markkanen, like, but even, guys like that just don't play that we don't know about.
Oh, for sure. But it's going to be, if it's Utah, it'll be obvious to us. Like if Markkanen isn't in the starting lineup, just alarm bells will be going off. Do you mean in terms of we roster somebody and they don't play?
Yes.
Or do you mean more so that we just haven't prepared for it pre-flop?
I mean, like we roster someone that doesn't play.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
I don't think so anyway.
I'm with you because like, why would it? Like, because to the point about like, I think you made this earlier in the show, like, you said this with Edwards. Like, if they were just gonna sit him, they would just sit him. So, like, yeah, I mean, to that point, like, I don't think they need to play these mind games where they're having active players just not play.
Yeah, and then, the Edwards one too. Like, if he isn't in the starting lineup, I'm just going to late swap and make some changes. You know, we've got him still playing up against OKC. So he's playing against OKC. There's also a game that locks later than that. Like, I don't think it's going to be that hard to make swaps if I'm just on the wrong side and he's playing. I don't think it's detrimental to my line. I don't think it's the end of the world to my lineups. Oh,
definitely not. I mean, yeah, because there's going to be plenty of plays. I mean, from whatever spot you want to go to, totally with that. There's a lot of good plays on this slate where you're not really going to be hamstrung no matter what.
Where the Edwards situation would be really tricky is if it was the 9 p.m. Eastern time game. But it's not. It's the 8:30 game. That would be the one where... Also, this is for sure something we could do. Edwards is out. You got him in the guard spot. You got him in the utility spot. Turn him into James Harden. Totally fine with that. No issues.
I think the bigger issue comes if he's out, honestly. Like, if he's in, we know who he is. And, like, he's a great play because it's Anthony Edwards. But if he's out, like, how much of the Minnesota value becomes a priority? I don't know.
Let's see. We have which other games are we going to have in that time spot? So we're still going to have Clippers and yes, we're still going to have. It's not that's not an issue either because Miami Dallas locks at the same time. That's where so much of our exposure is. If Ant's ruled out, it's so easy to turn some of the Miami and Dallas guys into Minnesota guys.
Totally.
Yeah, the more we talk through it, I think it makes more sense to have Edwards in lineups and then just adjust to it after the fact. I think that's way more sensible than building lineups now and like trying to adjust to figure out what to do if Ant's out. It's at the same time as we got these questions in Discord. People are like, hey, I've got 7 players from the Miami and the Dallas game. What do I do about that? First off, it's no issue. Second off, if Ant's out, cool. You've got flexibility to swap it into some Minnesota guys.
Yeah, it's really no issue at all. I mean, with how this slate sets up.
Olrat 14 is asking us if Hardy starts, play him over Davion Mitchell. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Dorian Ogans, Sabonis and Najee Marshall, or Zubats and Levine, Sabonis and Najee Marshall. Shane Daly, Lindquist, cocaine play of the day, who you're giving the biggest bump to in the Stims. I do want to be overweight to Edwards just because he doesn't show up right now. So we got a bunch of questions in late, so I'm just making sure that we answer them all. And then James Oder, Sabonis less of a priority for you two on DK. No, I like Sabonis. I like Sabonis today. And
yeah, I do too. My bump play is going to be Norman Powell.
Okay. All right. I'm just uploading my lineups here, Matt. Any final thoughts before Eric and I head on into playback?
No. Should be a fun one. That's about all I got.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you have not done it yet, do myself, Matt, and Jordan Klein a big favor. Like the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, the party's not ending here. We have got going on over in playback. Eric and myself, we are still going to be waiting on starting lineup for the Dallas Mavericks. We're waiting on what ends up happening here with Anthony Edwards. This slate has potential to still change a whole bunch post-lock. So come join us over in playback. Make sure you're getting all the updated information. We had a bunch of stuff come out yesterday. I assume it's going to be the same today. So see you guys over in playback. Jordan's already dropped that link in. So if you guys want to know where to find us, just click that link and join us over in playback. Other than that, guys, have a great night. Enjoy the All-Star break. If you aren't joining us on playback, you're making a mistake. But see you guys next week because we got a full week without NBA. So over to playback we go. Have a good one, guys.